I discovered my wife's family group chat titled Operation Freedom, Getting Her Out. I didn't confront anyone. Instead, I quietly moved my assets, changed passwords. When she tried to execute phase 1 of their plan, she discovered I'd already completed mine. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't announce itself with trumpets or warning signs painted in red across your bedroom wall. It arrives quietly in the glow of a phone screen at 2:47 a.m. when you've rolled over to silence what you think is just another spam notification. But it wasn't spam. I remember the exact texture of that moment, the weight of Emma's breath beside me, steady and innocent in sleep, the particular quality of autumn darkness pressing against our bedroom windows, the way my thumb moved across the screen without thinking, without knowing that this single swipe would crack open the foundation of everything I'd built over the last 8 years. The notification read, "Sarah added you to Operation Freedom, Getting Her Out." My first thought, barely conscious, swimming up through sleep. Wrong number, wrong chat, someone's mistake. My second thought, as my eyes focused on the participant list. Oh, Emma Mitchell, my wife, Sarah Mitchell, her mother, Robert Mitchell, her father, Jessica Torres, her sister, Amanda Chen, her best friend since college, and me, David Park, the husband, apparently added by accident at 2:43 a.m. when Sarah's thumb slipped while she was typing. What I would later learn was message number 847 inches, a conversation that had been running for 6 months. 6 months. I sat up slowly, carefully, the way you move when you're trying not to wake a sleeping tiger. Emma didn't stir. The blue light from my phone cast strange shadows across her face, a face I'd kissed that morning before work, a face I'd loved for nearly a decade, a face that suddenly seemed like a stranger's sculpture, beautiful and unknowable. I should have woken her right then. That's what the old David would have done, the David from 8 hours earlier, the David who still believed in direct communication and honest confrontation and the basic premise that when you find something disturbing, you address it immediately with the person you've promised to spend your life with. But I didn't. Instead, I got up, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bathtub in the dark, and I read, Sarah, May 3rd, 11:23 p.m. Girls, we need to talk about Emma. I'm worried. He's isolating her from us. Jessica's sister, May 3rd, 11:31 p.m. I noticed that too. She barely comes to family dinners anymore, and when she does, he's always there, monitoring everything she says. Amanda, best friend, May 4th, 12:47 a.m. Guys, I hate to say it, but I think Emma might be in an emotionally abusive situation. The signs are all there. She's lost weight, she's anxious all the time, she apologizes for everything. I had to stop reading, put the phone down, breathe. Abusive? I thought about Emma's weight loss, the result of the marathon training she'd been excited about, the race she'd circled on our kitchen calendar in red marker, the running shoes I'd bought her for her birthday because she'd been researching them for weeks. I thought about family dinners reduced because Emma had gotten a promotion at work, because her schedule had intensified, because we'd mutually agreed that every Sunday was too much when she was working 50-hour weeks and training for a marathon. I thought about her anxiety, the anxiety she'd had long before she met me, the anxiety she'd been seeing Dr. Walsh about, the anxiety I'd held her through during panic attacks at 3 a.m., whispering reassurances until her breathing steadied. But in their narrative, carefully constructed over hundreds of messages, I was the villain, the controlling husband, the isolator, the reason their daughter, sister, friend was not herself anymore. The bathroom tiles were cold against my feet. Outside, through the small window above the toilet, I could see the oak tree in our backyard, the one we'd planted together 3 years ago when we bought this house. We'd chosen it specifically, a red oak, because Emma loved the way they turned crimson in autumn, because she said it would outlive us both, a legacy of our commitment to this place, to each other, to the future we were building. I kept reading. Robert Dad, May 7th, 8:15 a.m. I've consulted with Jerry from the firm. He's a divorce attorney. He said Emma needs to document everything. Photos of any marks or bruises. Written records of controlling behavior. The more evidence, the better the settlement. Sarah, May 7th, 9:22 a.m. But she doesn't have bruises, Bob. He's too smart for that. This is psychological abuse. Jessica, May 7th, 10:03 a.m. Doesn't matter. In this state, she's entitled to half of everything. His business, the house, his retirement accounts. Jerry can help her get what she deserves. There it was. The truth, naked and gleaming between the lines of concern. The money. My software company had been acquired 4 months ago. The news had been public. TechCrunch had covered it. There'd been a celebration party. Emma had cried happy tears and told me how proud she was. The acquisition hadn't made me rich by Silicon Valley standards, but it had been significant. $4.2 million, pre-tax. We'd talked about it, Emma and I. We'd made plans. Pay off the house. Set up college funds for the kids we wanted to have. Travel to Japan like we'd always dreamed. Invest wisely. Live comfortably, but not ostentatiously. We'd agreed on all of it, or so I thought. Amanda Best, friend, May 19th, 11:47 p.m. Phase 1 should be establishing a separate financial identity. She needs her own accounts that he doesn't know about. Start transferring small amounts. Nothing he'd notice. Sarah, Mom, May 20th, 7:33 a.m. I can help with that. I'll open an account in my name. She can funnel money there. Jessica, sister, May 20th, 8:15 a.m. Phase 2 is building the case. Emma needs to start keeping a journal. Document every fight, every time he raises his voice, every controlling comment. Robert Dad, May 21st, 6:42 p.m. Phase 3 is the exit. We need to time it right. After the money from the acquisition fully vests and transfers. Jerry says that happens in August. We wait until then, build the case. Then she files. Quick and clean. Emma, May 21st, 11:23 p.m. I don't know, guys. This feels wrong. David isn't what you're saying he is. He's been nothing but supportive. I stopped breathing when I saw Emma's message. There, I thought. There's the woman I married. There's the truth. But then I kept reading. Sarah, May 21st, 11:31 p.m. Sweetie, that's exactly what victims of emotional abuse say. You're in too deep to see it clearly. Trust us. We're your family. We only want what's best for you. Amanda, best friend, May 21st, 11:45 p.m. I love you, but you're in denial. I've seen this before. The way he monitors your phone, the way he asks where you're going, the way he dabbles. Emma, May 21st, 11:52 p.m. He doesn't monitor my phone. He asks where I'm going because he cares, because he wants to know I'm safe. Jessica's sister, May 22nd, 12:03 a.m. That's surveillance, Emma. That's control disguised as care. Listen to us, please. And then, after a long pause, 17 minutes, where I imagine Emma sitting wherever she was, phone in hand, surrounded by the people who claimed to love her most, worn down by the collective weight of their certainty. Emma, May 22nd, 12:20 a.m. Okay, you're right. I'll start phase 1. I sat in that bathroom for an hour and 43 minutes. I read every message. All 847 of them, plus the new ones that kept arriving in real time as I scrolled, as if the universe wanted to make absolutely sure I understood the full scope of what was happening. They'd planned everything. The timeline, the narrative, the financial strategy. They'd researched lawyers, discussed asset protection, debated the best ways to paint me as an abuser without any actual abuse to point to. They'd coached Emma on what to say, how to act, what to document. And Emma, my Emma, the woman who'd once stayed up all night helping me debug code before a crucial presentation, who'd held my hand in the emergency room when my dad had his heart attack, who'd looked into my eyes 2 years ago and said, I choose you, every day, forever, had agreed to it. Not immediately, not enthusiastically, but eventually, worn down by the people she trusted most, she'd agreed. The sun was starting to rise when I finally unlocked the bathroom door. The light coming through the bedroom window was that particular shade of gray that belongs only to October mornings, soft and melancholic. Emma was still asleep, curled on her side, one hand tucked under her pillow. She looked peaceful. She looked like someone I used to know. I got dressed quietly. Jeans, a sweater, running shoes. I took my laptop, my phone, and the folder from my desk drawer that contained our important documents. I left a note on the kitchen counter, went for a drive to clear my head. Back later. Love you. I did love her. That was the strange, horrible truth of it. Even standing there in our kitchen, keys in hand, evidence of her planned betrayal burning in my pocket, I loved her. But love, I was learning, isn't always enough. Sometimes it's not even relevant. I drove to Marcus's house. Marcus Chen, my business partner, my friend since college, the brother I'd chosen when my biological family had failed me. He answered the door in a bathrobe, coffee in hand, concern immediate on his face when he saw my expression. David? It's 6 a.m. What? I need your help, I said. And I need you not to ask questions yet. He stepped aside, let me in, made me coffee, sat across from me at his kitchen table while his wife, recognizing the weight of whatever this was, took their kids upstairs to give us privacy. I showed him the messages. All of them. Marcus read in silence, his jaw tightening, his hands gripping the phone so hard I worried he'd crack the screen. When he finished, he looked at me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Rage. These people, he said quietly, and his voice had the quality of a knife being sharpened, are trying to destroy you. I know. For money. I know. Using your wife as a weapon. I know. He set the phone down carefully, as if it might explode. What do you want to do? I'd been thinking about this for hours, sitting in that bathroom, watching the sky lighten degree by degree. I'd thought about confrontation, walking back into that bedroom, waking Emma, demanding explanations. I'd thought about rage, showing up at her parents' house, throwing the evidence in their faces, watching them scramble for justifications. But that wasn't how you win wars. That was how you give your enemy time to regroup, to spin new narratives, to paint you as the aggressor, proving their point about your controlling, volatile nature. No. If they wanted to play this quietly, building their case in secret, preparing their strike for maximum damage, then I would do the same, but better, smarter, more thoroughly. I want to protect myself, I said. Completely. Before she executes. Phase 3. Marcus nodded slowly. You'll need a lawyer. I need more than that. I need a strategist. I need someone who understands financial protection, asset security, evidence preservation. I need someone who can help me build a defense they'll never see coming. I know someone, Marcus said. He was already reaching for his phone. Diane Reeves. She's a shark. She's expensive. And she's exactly what you need. Can she see me today? For this? She'll make time. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in Diane Reeves's office on the 42nd floor of a building downtown, windows overlooking the city I'd built my life in, the city I'd thought I'd grow old in with Emma by my side. Diane was 50-something, sharp-featured, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first car. She listened to my story without interrupting, her eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, when I showed her the messages, when I laid out the timeline of their planned operation, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Mr. Park, she said, they've made a critical error. What's that? They added you to the chat, which means every message in there is admissible evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, of planned perjury, of documented intention to file false claims. They've handed you the blueprint to their entire operation. Can we use it? We can do better than use it. We can dismantle them. She opened her laptop, fingers already flying across the keyboard. First, we protect your assets. Today, right now. We create legal structures they can't penetrate. We move money into protected accounts. We document every penny, every decision, with legitimate business and legal justifications they can't challenge. Won't that seem suspicious? Not if it's done properly. You're a successful entrepreneur, Mr. Park. It's perfectly reasonable for you to restructure your finances after a major acquisition. Asset protection, tax optimization, estate planning, all standard practice. We'll do it by the book, better than by the book. So clean they'll never find an angle to attack it. She typed something, sent an email, looked back at me. Second, we gather evidence. Everything. Financial records, proving you haven't controlled her money. Medical records showing her anxiety predated your relationship. Communications demonstrating your support for her career, her friendships, her family relationships. We build a counter-narrative so strong that their lies suffocate under the weight of documentation. I felt something unfamiliar rising in my chest. Not quite hope, something harder, something with edges. Third, Diane continued, we wait. We let them proceed with their plan. We let them document their false claims, build their fraudulent case, commit themselves to their story. And when they finally make their move, when they think they're executing phase 3 and catching you off guard, that's when we reveal that you've known all along. That's when we show the judge their group chat. That's when we demonstrate conspiracy, perjury, and fraud. That's when we don't just defend ourselves, Mr. Park. That's when we win. That's when we win. The autumn light slanted through her office windows, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. Inside, in that moment, I felt the tectonic shift of my life, reorganizing around a new truth. I had been a husband. Now I would be a strategist. They wanted Operation Freedom? They were about to discover I'd launched Operation Truth. And unlike their operation, mine wouldn't be based on lies. The hardest part wasn't the planning. It wasn't the meetings with lawyers, the asset transfers, the careful construction of legal fortifications around everything I'd built. The hardest part was walking back into my house at 3:47 p.m. that first day, groceries in hand, because I'd stopped at Whole Foods and bought the organic blueberries Emma liked. The specific brand of oat milk she preferred, the dark chocolate with sea salt that she kept in the freezer for bad days and acting like my world hadn't just inverted itself. The hardest part was being normal. Emma was in the living room when I came in, laptop open, hair piled on top of her head in that messy bun she wore when she was deep in work mode. She looked up when she heard the door, and her smile was genuine. That was what killed me, the authenticity of that smile, the way her whole face brightened when she saw me. As if the woman who'd agreed to Operation Freedom and the woman who loved coming home to me could somehow coexist in the same body. Maybe they could. Maybe that was the tragedy of it. "Hey, you," she said, closing her laptop. "I was getting worried. Your note said you'd be back earlier." I set the groceries down on the kitchen counter, focusing on the mechanical task of unpacking them, using the movement to hide whatever expression might betray me. Sorry, took a longer drive than I planned. Ended up at that coffee shop in Riverton, the one with the good pour-over. Lost track of time thinking. Thinking about what? About how your family is trying to rob me. About how they've convinced you I'm abusing you. About how you're planning to leave me in exactly 4 months when my acquisition money fully vests. The acquisition? I said instead, which wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Now that the dust has settled, I'm thinking about next steps. Asset management, tax strategy, that kind of thing. Might need to restructure some things. I watched her carefully in my peripheral vision as I put the blueberries in the refrigerator. Was there a flicker of interest, a calculation behind her eyes? But she just nodded, stood up, came over, and wrapped her arms around me from behind. "That's smart," she said, her cheek pressed against my back. "You should talk to someone who knows about that stuff. I don't want you stressed about money on top of everything else." Her touch felt like a live wire. I wanted to pull away. I wanted to turn around and confront her, show her the messages, demand to know how she could hold me like this, while planning to betray me. Instead, I covered her hands with mine, squeezed gently. "I actually have a meeting scheduled for Monday. financial advisor that Marcus recommended. Good, she said. Then, after a pause, hey, are we okay? You seem distant today. And there it was, the genuine concern in her voice, the worry that I might be upset, the desire to fix whatever was wrong. This was the Emma I knew, the Emma I'd married. But somewhere underneath, invisible but present like radiation, was the other Emma. The one who'd agreed to document my controlling behavior. The one who was planning. Phase 1. I turned around, looked into her eyes, brown eyes, flecked with gold when the light hit them right. I'd stared into these eyes across dinner tables and hospital rooms and that beach in Maui where I'd proposed. I'd thought I knew every shade of emotion they could hold. I'd been wrong. We're fine, I said. I'm just processing. Big life changes, you know? Takes time to adjust to what having this kind of money means. She nodded, understanding. She always understood, or seemed to. That was her gift. Empathy. The ability to make you feel heard and seen and valued. Unless the empathy was a performance too. Unless everything was... The next 3 weeks unfolded like a masterclass in duplicity, except I was both student and teacher, both performer and audience. On the surface, everything was normal. Better than normal, actually. I was attentive, thoughtful. I brought Emma coffee in bed on Saturday mornings. I asked about her work, listened to her stories about office politics and difficult clients, offered advice when she wanted it, and just support when she didn't. I cooked her favorite meals. I planned a weekend getaway to the mountains, that cabin she'd been wanting to visit. We made love, and I held her afterwards. And if she noticed that I held her differently now, like something fragile and potentially dangerous, like a beautiful snake, she didn't say anything. Below the surface, I was building an empire of protection. Diane Reeves worked fast. By the end of the first week, my assets had been restructured into a complex but entirely legal web of trusts, LLCs, and protected accounts. Everything was documented. Every move had a legitimate business justification. On paper, it looked like exactly what it was. A smart entrepreneur, protecting his wealth through standard asset management strategies. But what it really was a fortress. They can't touch this, Diane told me during our second meeting, spreading documents across her conference table like a general planning a siege. Even in a divorce, even with the best lawyer money can buy, these structures are ironclad. Everything's been properly established with clear business purposes. You've protected your premarital assets, your business interests, your intellectual property. What she'd be entitled to is minimal. What about the house? I asked. Joint asset, purchased during marriage. She'd have a claim. But here's where it gets interesting. Diane pulled up another document. The house is worth approximately $800,000, correct? With about $200,000 left on the mortgage? I nodded. If she files for divorce, you offer to buy out her half. Clean, simple, $300,000, which is generous considering the remaining mortgage. She walks away with cash. You keep the house. Most courts would see that as more than fair. And if she refuses, then we sell it, split the proceeds, and you move on. Either way, Mr. Park, you're protected. The big money, the acquisition funds, your business interests, your retirement accounts, all secured. I should have felt relief. Victory, even. Instead, I just felt tired. There's something else we need to discuss, Diane said, her voice shifting into a lower register. The evidence. She pulled out a tablet, opened a file. I've reviewed every message in that group chat. I've documented the timeline, the participants, the specific claims they're making. But we need more. We need your counter-evidence, proof that their narrative is false. Like what? Medical records showing Emma's anxiety predates your relationship. Financial records proving she's always had independent access to money. Communications demonstrating your support for her autonomy. Witnesses who can testify to your character. Phone records, calendar appointments. Anything that contradicts their story of isolation and control. I spent the next week gathering it all. Doctor's notes from Emma's therapist, Dr. Walsh, going back 6 years, documenting anxiety and depression that had started in college. Bank statements showing the joint account where both our paychecks were deposited, where Emma had full access, where she'd made purchases freely without my oversight or control. Text messages between Emma and her friends before they'd turned on me, where she'd talked about how supportive I was, how lucky she felt, how happy she was. Every piece of evidence felt like a small death, like I was examining the corpse of my marriage, cataloging what had gone wrong, looking for the moment the infection had started. The worst were the photos. I had thousands of them on my phone, on my laptop, backed up in the cloud. Emma and me at her sister's wedding, her head thrown back, laughing at something Jessica had said. This was before Jessica had decided I was isolating Emma from the family. Emma and her mother in our kitchen, making Thanksgiving dinner together 2 years ago, before Sarah had convinced herself I was controlling her daughter. Emma with Amanda at that concert in June, both of them grinning, sweaty, happy before Amanda had become the chief architect of Operation Freedom. Looking at these photos was like staring at evidence of an alternate timeline, a parallel universe where the people in these images were who they appeared to be, where love meant what it was supposed to mean, where family was protection instead of threat. I was in my home office on a Thursday evening, organizing files for Diane, when Emma knocked on the door. "Hey," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "You've been in here a lot lately." I looked up from my laptop. "Sorry, just work stuff. Getting everything organized after the acquisition. Lot of loose ends." "It's fine. I just miss you." She came in, sat on the edge of my desk. "Feel like you've been distant the last couple weeks." There was genuine vulnerability in her voice, real concern. And underneath it, or was I imagining this, a note of something else? Calculation? Suspicion? Was she worried I was pulling away? Was she concerned it might interfere with the timeline of Operation Freedom? "I'm sorry," I said. And I was. Sorry for all of it. For every part of this situation. I've just been in my head. It's a lot to process. You know? One day you're grinding, hoping the business works out. Next day you're sitting on millions of dollars. It's disorienting. She nodded, reached out, and touched my face. "We should go somewhere. Take a real vacation. Not just a weekend in the mountains. Like 2 weeks in Europe. Paris, Rome, Barcelona. We've always talked about it. We can afford it now. We can afford it until August, when you file for divorce and try to take half." "That sounds amazing," I said. "Let's do it. Maybe in the spring, after things settle down a bit?" "Spring," she agreed, smiling. Then softer. "I love you, David. You know that, right? I know things have been weird with my family lately. All that tension about us not visiting as much. But none of that changes how I feel about you." I pulled her into my lap, held her close, buried my face in her hair so she couldn't see my expression. "I love you too." And God help me, I did. That was the sick irony of it. Even knowing what I knew, even preparing for the war that was coming, I still loved her. Maybe that made me weak. Maybe that made me a fool. Or maybe it just made me human. The group chat continued its steady stream of poison, message by message, day by day. Sarah had removed me after that first accidental addition, panicked messages about the mistake, worried I might have seen something, reassurances from Emma that I'd been asleep, that my phone was always on silent at night, that there was no way I'd noticed. But what they didn't know was that I'd screenshotted everything before Sarah removed me. And what they really didn't know was that Marcus, brilliant Marcus, had used a recovery tool to access the full chat history from my phone's backup data before the removal could propagate through the system. I had everything, every message from the beginning, every detail of their plan, and I watched, in real time through the screenshots. Marcus periodically updated me with he'd found a technical backdoor, something about cached data and cloud sync protocols I didn't fully understand but thanked God for as Operation Freedom evolved. Phase 1. Financial independence. In progress. Emma had opened a separate bank account. I knew because I'd seen the message where she'd confirmed it, Told them she'd transferred $500 as a start, that she'd add more gradually so I wouldn't notice. What she didn't know was that I'd already noted the withdrawal, had already documented it, had already prepared my explanation for when it would eventually matter. My wife maintained her own private account for personal spending, as many married people do. I never questioned it because I'm not controlling. I'm not an abuser. I trusted her financial autonomy. Phase 2. Building the case. In progress. Jessica had sent Emma a template journal, pre-formatted with leading questions designed to create a narrative of abuse. Describe times when he made you feel small. List instances where he questioned your decisions. Document moments when he seemed angry or volatile. Emma had started filling it in. I'd seen her once, late at night, sitting at the kitchen table when she thought I was asleep, typing on her laptop with that particular focused intensity that meant she was working on something important. My evidence journal. My character assassination. My destruction, written in real time by the woman who shared my bed. Phase 3. The exit. Planned for August. Robert had confirmed with Jerry the lawyer. Optimal timing was the second week of August, after the final acquisition payment cleared, after the money was fully vested and accessible. Emma would file on a Thursday. She'd move out that weekend, go stay with her parents. By Monday, I'd be served with divorce papers and a restraining order based on her documented claims of emotional abuse. I'd be painted as a monster. She'd be painted as a victim, and her family would help her walk away with millions. That was their plan. But here's what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, what their arrogance and greed had blinded them to. I knew every detail of their operation before they executed a single meaningful step, and while they were planning Phase 3, I'd already completed Phases 1 through 10 of mine. On a Sunday morning in late October, Emma and I went for a run together. It was her idea. She was training for that marathon, and she'd asked if I wanted to join her for an easy 5 miles. The air was crisp, the leaves were turning, and for a moment, running side by side through our neighborhood, breathing in sync, I could almost pretend everything was okay. "I've been thinking," Emma said as we rounded the corner near the park. "Maybe we should look into couples therapy." I nearly stumbled. "What?" "Not because anything's wrong," she added quickly. "Just preventatively. I read this article about how even healthy couples benefit from having a space to communicate better. And with all the changes lately, the money stuff, it might be good to have someone help us navigate it." I understood immediately what this was. Another item on her checklist. Another piece of evidence. I tried to get him help. I suggested therapy. He refused, which proves he doesn't care about our relationship. "I think that's a great idea," I said. She looked surprised. "Really?" "Yeah. Actually, I've been thinking the same thing. Let's do it. Find someone good. Make an appointment. I'm in." I watched her process this. Watched the quick calculation behind her eyes. This wasn't what she'd expected. This wasn't how the controlling, abusive husband was supposed to respond. "Okay," she said slowly. "I'll look into it." "Great. Maybe ask your therapist, Dr. Walsh, if she has any recommendations. She's always been good with you." Emma nodded, and we ran on in silence. What Emma didn't know was that Diane had already prepared for this possibility. We'd identified 3 therapists in advance, all with sterling reputations, all known for evidence-based practice and ethical documentation. If Emma chose one of them, perfect. If she chose someone else, we'd attend anyway, and I'd be the model client, open, honest, willing to work on myself, demonstrating zero controlling or abusive behavior. Every session would become evidence. Every interaction would be documented. The trap was so perfect, so invisible, that she'd walk into it thinking it was her idea. That night, lying in bed, Emma fell asleep quickly. She always did one of the things I'd always envied about her, the ability to close her eyes and simply drift away, unburdened by the insomnia that plagued me. I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathe, watching the shadows from the streetlight outside move across our ceiling. In 4 months, maybe less, this would be over. She'd make her move. I'd reveal my countermove. The life we'd built together would detonate in a courtroom. in front of lawyers and judges, reduced to evidence and accusations and financial settlements. There would be no winners. Not really, but there would be truth. And if I'd learned anything in the last 3 weeks, it was this. Truth, properly documented and strategically deployed, was the most powerful weapon in the world. Emma stirred beside me, reached out in her sleep, her hand finding mine. Her fingers curled around my palm, holding on like she used to when we first started dating, when she told me she felt safest when she was touching me. I held her hand back, and I counted down the days until the war would begin. November arrived like a thief, stealing daylight hour by hour, turning our neighborhood into a study in early darkness and amber streetlights. I'd always loved this time of year, the way the cold sharpened everything, made colors more vivid, made you appreciate warmth when you found it. But this November felt different. This November felt like watching a timer count down, each day bringing me closer to an explosion I could see coming but couldn't prevent without triggering it myself. Emma found a therapist, Dr. Monica Brennan, a marriage counselor with 20 years of experience and a practice in the nice part of downtown, the kind of office with abstract art on the walls and those impossible comfortable chairs that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Our first appointment was scheduled for November 8th, a Thursday evening at 6 p.m. I prepared for it like a general preparing for battle. "What are you hoping to get out of these sessions?" Diane asked me during one of our weekly strategy meetings. We'd fallen into a rhythm every Monday morning. Her office, coffee that her assistant brought in without being asked, documents spread across the conference table like tarot cards predicting my future. "Documentation," I said. "Proof that I'm willing to work on the relationship, that I'm not resistant to feedback or self-examination. Proof that when a professional observer watches our dynamic, they don't see abuse or control." That's the legal answer. What's the real answer? I looked out her window at the city below. From this height, everything looked orderly, clean. You couldn't see the mess of individual lives, the betrayals and complications and small destructions that made up the street-level truth of things. "I want to understand," I said finally. "I want to sit in a room with Emma and a trained professional and see if there's any version of reality where her family's narrative makes sense, where I'm actually the person they say I am and just can't see it." Diane was quiet for a moment. Then, "David, you know you're not an abuser, do I?" I turned back to face her. "I've been gaslighting myself for weeks. What if they're right? What if I've been controlling and just rationalized it all? What if—" "Stop." Her voice was sharp, cutting through my spiral. "I've seen the evidence. All of it. Bank records showing equal financial access. Communications proving you encouraged her career advancement. Medical documentation that her anxiety predates you by years. Testimonials from friends, real friends, not the ones in that group chat describing you as supportive and respectful. Character references from colleagues. From Marcus. From people who've known you for decades." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "You're not perfect. No one is. But you're not what they're claiming. And the fact that you're questioning yourself this much, that's actually proof you're not a narcissistic abuser. Real abusers don't have this kind of self-doubt." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. "The therapy sessions will prove it," Diane continued. "Dr. Brennan has an excellent reputation. She's known for detailed session notes, ethical practice, and unbiased observation. Whatever happens in those sessions will be documented. And if Emma tries to claim abuse later, we'll have a professional third party's contemporaneous notes contradicting that narrative. What if Emma manipulates her? What if she's so good at playing victim that even a trained therapist believes it? Then we'll have documentation of what Emma claims versus what actually happens in session. Either way, we win. Either the therapist sees through it, or we have evidence of Emma's willingness to lie to professionals. Both scenarios work for us. It felt wrong, strategizing about therapy like this. Therapy was supposed to be sacred space, genuine exploration, vulnerable truth-telling. But then again, Emma and her family had already violated every sacred space we'd had. Our marriage, our home, the private intimacy of our relationship. Why should therapy be different? The group chat continued to evolve. A cancer growing in real time. Marcus had gotten better at extracting the updates. He'd figured out some technical workaround involving cloud backup protocols and data recovery that I didn't fully understand but was grateful for. Every few days, he'd send me screenshots of new messages, and I'd add them to the growing file that Diane kept in her secured server. Amanda, best friend. November 2nd, 10:23 p.m. How's phase 1 going, Em? You building that nest egg? Emma. November 2nd, 11:47 p.m. Slowly. I've got about $3,000 saved so far. I'm trying to be careful. He reviews our joint account statements every month. I did review them. Not because I was controlling, but because I was responsible. Because I wanted to make sure we weren't overspending, that our savings goals were on track, that neither of us had been victims of fraud or identity theft. The same reason millions of financially responsible people review their accounts. But in their narrative, basic financial awareness became surveillance. Sarah. November 3rd, 7:15 a.m. $3,000 is a good start, sweetheart. Keep going. You'll need at least $10,000 for first and last month's rent on a new place, security deposit, setting up utilities. Jerry says you should have some cash on hand that he can't freeze when you file. Jessica's sister. November 3rd, 9:33 a.m. What about the journal? Are you documenting everything? Emma. November 3rd, 10:12 p.m. Yes. It's hard, though. I have to really think about things to frame them the right way. Like, last week he asked why I was home late from work. In the moment, it just seemed like normal conversation. But when I write it down as interrogating me about my whereabouts, it sounds different. I had to read that message 3 times before the full weight of it hit me. She knew. On some level, she knew she was twisting reality. She understood that normal conversations had to be framed to sound abusive, and she was doing it anyway. Amanda, best friend. November 3rd, 11:28 p.m. That's because you're conditioned to normalize his behavior, Em. The fact that you have to reframe it doesn't mean you're lying. It means you're finally seeing the truth of what's been happening. The rationalization was perfect. Elegant, even. Any cognitive dissonance Emma felt, any guilt about distorting the truth, could be explained away as her being too traumatized to see clearly. The worse she felt about lying, the more it proved she needed to lie. It was genius. It was monstrous. Robert Dad. November 4th, 6:55 p.m. Update from Jerry. He's reviewing the asset structure David set up after the acquisition. Looks like he's moved some money into protected accounts and LLCs. Jerry says it's concerning. Might indicate he's planning something. I went cold when I read that. They were tracking my financial moves. Of course they were. Robert had connections, resources. He'd probably asked his lawyer friend to do some digging. Maybe accessed public business filings, LLC registrations. But here's what they didn't know. Every move I'd made was completely legal, properly documented, and clearly justified. Any forensic accountant, any judge, would see exactly what it was smart asset protection following a major financial event. Sarah. November 4th, 8:22 p.m. Do you think he suspects something? Emma. November 4th, 11:03 p.m. No. He's been more attentive than usual, actually. More affectionate. Planning dates, cooking dinner, asking about my day. If anything, he seems like he's trying harder. Jessica's sister. November 4th, 11:47 p.m. That's classic abuser behavior. Love bombing. He senses you pulling away emotionally, so he's trying to reel you back in. Stay strong, Em. I laughed when I read that. Actually laughed. Sitting alone in my office at midnight, the sound harsh and bitter in the quiet house. I couldn't win. Distant behavior proved I was cold and controlling. Attentive behavior proved I was manipulative and love bombing. Any action I took, any choice I made, could be twisted into evidence of abuse. The framework was unfalsifiable. That's what made it so dangerous. Our first therapy session arrived with the kind of crisp, clear evening that felt like the world was holding its breath. Emma had come home early from work, changed into jeans and a soft sweater, Her comfortable but put-together outfit, the one she wore when she wanted to make a good impression without looking like she was trying too hard. We drove to Dr. Brennan's office in relative silence, the kind of quiet that can mean either comfortable companionship or the calm before a storm. Emma's hand found mine on the center console, squeezed gently. "Nervous?" she asked. "A little. You?" "Yeah, but good nervous, I think. Like this is going to help." I looked at her profile in the fading light, the familiar curve of her cheek, the way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking. She looked sincere, hopeful, even. Was this part of the performance? Or was there some part of Emma that genuinely wanted to fix things, that hadn't fully committed to Operation Freedom, that was still fighting against her family's narrative? I didn't know anymore. Dr. Brennan's office was exactly what I'd expected. Calm, neutral, designed to put people at ease. The doctor herself was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of warm, intelligent eyes that made you feel immediately understood. She shook both our hands, invited us to sit on the oversized couch while she took the chair across from us. "So," she said, notepad in her lap, pen ready, "tell me what brings you here." Emma and I looked at each other. I gestured for her to go first. "We've been married for 8 years, Emma began. "And it's been good. Really good. Mostly. But lately, with some big life changes, David's business was acquired. There's been a lot of money stuff to deal with. I feel like we're drifting, like we're not communicating as well as we used to." Dr. Brennan nodded, made a note. "And David, what's your perspective?" "I agree," I said carefully. "The acquisition has been wonderful, but also stressful. It's changed our dynamic in ways I didn't anticipate. I want to make sure we navigate it together, that we're on the same page about our future. Tell me about your communication patterns. How do you typically handle disagreements?" Emma spoke first. "We don't really fight. Like, we disagree sometimes, but it never gets heated. David is very calm. Sometimes too calm. Maybe. Like he shuts down emotionally instead of engaging." I felt the shift in the room, subtle but present. Was this the beginning? The setup for her narrative? "Can you give me an example?" Dr. Brennan asked. Emma thought for a moment. "A few weeks ago, I wanted to go visit my parents for the weekend. David said he'd rather not go, that he had work to catch up on. I felt like, I don't know, like he was pulling away from my family." Dr. Brennan turned to me. "David, what was happening for you in that moment?" "I did have work to catch up on," I said. But more than that, Emma had been working 60-hour weeks for the previous month. I was worried she was burning out. I suggested she go see her parents alone, take the weekend to relax without me there so she wouldn't feel like she had to entertain both me and her family. I thought I was being supportive. Did you communicate that to Emma? I tried to. Maybe I could have been clearer. Dr. Brennan made another note. "Emma, when David suggested you go alone, what did you feel?" "Relieved, honestly. He was right that I was exhausted. But also," she paused, and I could see her choosing her words carefully, "also a little sad that he didn't want to come. Like maybe he doesn't enjoy spending time with my family." "Do you enjoy spending time with Emma's family, David?" Here it was. The trap. If I said yes, I was lying. The tension with her family was real and documented. If I said no, I was proving their narrative, that I was isolating her. "It's complicated," I said. "I love Emma's family because they're important to her. But I also find the dynamics challenging sometimes. Her mother can be critical. Her father can be judgmental. I don't always feel welcomed or appreciated, so I'm honest with Emma about that, and we navigate it together. Truth. Not the whole truth. I couldn't mention the group chat, couldn't reveal what I knew, but enough truth that it was defensible, verifiable, real." Dr. Brennan nodded slowly. "That's actually very healthy communication. Being honest about family dynamics while still respecting your partner's relationships with them. Emma, how do you feel about David's honesty regarding your family?" Emma hesitated. "I appreciate it. But sometimes I feel caught in the middle, like I have to choose between him and them. Does David ask you to choose? No, not explicitly. But the tension is there. Tension often is, Doctor, Brennan said. The question is how we manage it. Do you feel controlled in your relationship with your family, Emma? Does David prevent you from seeing them or communicating with them? No, Emma admitted. I see them when I want to. I talk to my mom almost every day. David doesn't monitor that or anything. I watched Dr. Brennan make a note, watched the careful neutrality of her expression. She was good. She wasn't leading, wasn't suggesting, just listening, observing, documenting. The session continued for another 40 minutes. We talked about work stress, about financial planning, about our sex life, which Emma described as good but could be more frequent, about household chores and future goals and the small frictions that accumulate in any long-term relationship. And through it all, I was the model client, open, willing to take feedback. Acknowledging my flaws, yes, I could be emotionally distant sometimes. Yes, I could be better at expressing affection verbally. Yes, I sometimes got too focused on work and neglected quality time. But nothing I acknowledged came close to abuse. Nothing in our interaction suggested control or manipulation or the kind of toxic dynamic Emma's family was claiming existed. When the session ended, Dr. Brennan scheduled us for the following week and told us she thought we were doing important work. In the car afterward, Emma was quiet. I could feel her processing, calculating, trying to figure out what had just happened and whether it had gone according to her plan. That was good, I said finally. I liked her. Yeah, me too. Emma stared out the window. She seemed fair, not sympathetic to Emma's victimhood, not immediately convinced I was abusive, just fair. I wondered if that scared Emma, if she was realizing that the truth, when examined by a professional, didn't support the narrative her family had constructed. Or maybe I was just hoping. That night, another message appeared in the group chat. Emma, November 8th, 11:52 p.m. We had our first therapy session tonight. It didn't go how I expected. The therapist seemed to think we're pretty normal. Asked if David prevents me from seeing you guys, and I had to say no because he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. Sarah, Mom, November 9th, 6:33 a.m. Honey, of course he's going to behave well in front of a therapist. Abusers are excellent at manipulating professionals. That's part of their pathology. Don't let one session make you doubt what you know to be true. Jessica, sister, November 9th, 7:47 a.m. Mom's right. You need to be more explicit about the problems in your next session. Tell her about the financial control, the isolation, the emotional manipulation. Don't let him gaslight the therapist the way he's gaslighted you. Robert, Dad, November 9th, 8:15 a.m. Keep going to the sessions. It'll look good for the divorce that you tried to work on things. Just make sure you're documenting what you tell the therapist. Jerry needs evidence that you raised these issues before filing. I read the messages twice, 3 times, memorizing them. They were coaching her, telling her to lie to the therapist, instructing her to manufacture evidence. And if Emma followed their advice, if she started making false claims in our sessions, Doctor, Brennan would document it all, every accusation, every inconsistency. And when the time came, when we ended up in court and Emma tried to claim abuse, we'd have a therapist's notes showing exactly when and how the false narrative had been constructed. They were building my case for me. They just didn't know it yet. I stood in my office long after Emma had gone to bed, looking at the evidence files on my computer, spreadsheets tracking every financial transaction, communications proving my support for Emma's autonomy, medical records, character references, screenshots of the group chat, Dr. Brennan's appointment confirmations. In 4 months, maybe less, this would all come out. The truth would detonate in the space between Emma and me, destroying everything, leaving nothing but rubble and legal documents and the smoking ruins of what we'd built together. But at least it would be the truth. And at least I wouldn't be destroyed by lies. I heard Emma's footsteps in the hallway, soft on the hardwood. She appeared in the doorway, wearing one of my old t-shirts. her hair down around her shoulders. "Coming to bed?" she asked. "Soon," I said. She walked over, wrapped her arms around me from behind, pressed her cheek against my back. "I love you, David Park." "I love you too, Emma Mitchell." Both statements were true. Both statements were also completely irrelevant to what was coming. Thanksgiving arrived like an unwelcome guest, the kind you have to smile at while they track mud through your house and criticize your furniture. Emma's family always hosted a tradition, spanning back to before I'd entered the picture, back when their family unit was intact and uncomplicated by the presence of a husband they'd eventually decide to destroy. "We don't have to go," Emma said on the Tuesday before, sitting cross-legged on our bed while I folded laundry. "If you're not comfortable, I can tell them we're doing our own thing this year." I looked at her carefully. Was this genuine consideration, or was it a test? Another opportunity for her to document my isolation of her from her family. "Of course we're going," I said. "It's Thanksgiving. It's important to you." She seemed relieved, or maybe disappointed. I couldn't tell anymore. What Emma didn't know was that Diane and I had already strategized for this exact scenario. We'd prepared for the family dinner the way military commanders prepare for hostile territory engagement. I'd be polite, gracious, helpful. I'd bring an expensive bottle of wine and Emma's mother's favorite dessert from that bakery across town. I'd engage in conversation, ask about their lives, show interest in Robert's golf game and Jessica's new promotion. I'd be perfect. And if they tried to bait me, tried to create a scene they could later point to as evidence of my volatility or controlling nature, I'd simply refuse to take the bait. I'd document everything afterward, times, witnesses, exact quotes, turn their trap into evidence of their hostility toward me. "What should we bring?" I asked, refolding one of Emma's sweaters. "Mom mentioned she's doing her usual spread. Maybe we could bring wine? And that pumpkin cheesecake from Magnolia's? Perfect. I'll pick them up Wednesday." She smiled, came over, and kissed my cheek. "Thank you for being flexible about this. I know it's not always easy with my family." If only you knew, I thought. If only you knew that your family is currently plotting to take everything from me while you help them. "Family's important," I said instead, "even when it's complicated." Our second therapy session happened the Monday before Thanksgiving. This time, Emma came prepared. I could see it in the way she sat slightly forward, hands clasped, the posture of someone about to unburden themselves. Dr. Brennan noticed too. Good therapists always do. "How was your week?" Dr. Brennan asked, settling into her chair with that same calm, observant presence. "Challenging," Emma said before I could respond. "I've been thinking a lot about our last session, about the patterns in our relationship. And I realized I haven't been fully honest about some things." Here it was, the script her family had given her. I kept my face neutral, interested, concerned, the expression of a husband who wants to understand his wife's feelings. "I'm listening," Dr. Brennan said. Emma took a breath. "David is very successful, very intelligent, very capable. And sometimes I feel like he uses that to make me feel small. Like he's always right, always knows better, always has the answer. And when I disagree or have a different perspective, he finds subtle ways to dismiss it." Dr. Brennan's pen moved across her notepad. "Can you give me a specific example?" "Last month, I wanted to invest some of our money from the acquisition into my friend Amanda's startup. She's launching a sustainable fashion company. I thought it was a good opportunity." David shot it down immediately. I remembered that conversation, remembered it clearly, because Amanda's sustainable fashion company was transparently a terrible investment, a business with no real plan, no market research, just vibes and enthusiasm, and a website designed on Squarespace. "David," Dr. Brennan turned to me, "what was your thinking in that conversation?" "I asked to see a business plan," I said calmly. "Financials, market analysis, competitive landscape. Amanda couldn't provide any of that. It wasn't that I was dismissing Emma's idea. I was trying to do due diligence before we invested a significant amount of money. That's basic financial responsibility." "How much did Emma want to invest?" $50,000. Dr. Brennan's eyebrows rose slightly. That's substantial. And Emma, when David asked for the business plan, how did that make you feel? Like he didn't trust my judgment? Like he thought I was stupid? Did David say you were stupid? No, but that's how it felt. Feelings are valid, Dr. Brennan said carefully, but we also need to distinguish between someone's actions and our interpretation of those actions. David asking for a business plan before investing $50,000 seems reasonable. The question is how that request was delivered. David, how did you phrase it? I'd known this would come up. I'd prepared. I said, "This sounds interesting. Can we see Amanda's business plan and financial projections? I want to understand the opportunity before we commit that kind of money." That's it. That's it. Dr. Brennan looked at Emma. Does that sound accurate? Emma's jaw tightened. The words were fine. It's the tone, the implication that I hadn't thought it through, that I was being impulsive. Were you being impulsive? Dr. Brennan asked, not unkindly. I wanted to support my friend. Supporting friends is wonderful, but when it comes to large financial decisions in a marriage, both partners having input seems appropriate. David didn't forbid you from investing. He asked for information. Is that controlling, or is that being a responsible financial partner? I watched Emma struggle with this, watched her realize that Dr. Brennan wasn't buying the narrative, wasn't immediately siding with her victimhood. I guess when you put it that way. Emma trailed off, but I could see the frustration in her eyes. This wasn't going according to plan. The therapist was supposed to validate her feelings, recognize the subtle abuse, help her build her case. Instead, Dr. Brennan was asking questions, drawing distinctions, refusing to conflate Emma's emotional reactions with my actual behavior. The session continued. Emma brought up other examples, times I'd questioned her decisions, moments when I'd been distant or dismissive, and each time Dr. Brennan asked for specifics, for context, for my perspective, and each time the narrative fell apart under scrutiny. By the end of the hour, Emma looked exhausted, defeated, almost. I'm going to give you both homework, Dr. Brennan said as we wrapped up. I want you each to keep a journal this week, not about what the other person does wrong, but about your own feelings, your own reactions, your own contributions to the dynamic. Emma, when you feel dismissed, I want you to write down exactly what was said and what you felt. David, when you sense tension, I want you to document the interaction. We'll review these next session. In the car afterward, Emma was silent for a long time. You think I'm making it all up, she said finally. I think you're struggling, I said carefully. I think your family has opinions about our marriage that might be influencing how you see things. And I think therapy is exactly where we need to be to sort through it. My family cares about me. I know they do. But caring about someone doesn't mean they're always right about what's best for them. She turned away, stared out the window. You don't understand what it's like, having everyone you love tell you that you're in a bad situation, that the person you're married to is hurting you. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Are they telling you that? A pause, too long, sometimes, in their way. And do you believe them? Another pause. I don't know what I believe anymore. At least that was honest. The group chat that night was vicious. Emma, November 20th, 11:34 p.m. Second therapy session was worse than the first. The therapist keeps taking his side, keeps making excuses for his behavior. I tried to explain about the financial control and she acted like asking for a business plan was reasonable. Jessica's sister, November 21st, 6:47 a.m. She's probably one of those old-school therapists who doesn't understand financial abuse. You need to be more explicit, Em. Tell her he monitors your spending. Tell her you're afraid to make decisions without his approval. Emma, November 21st, 7:52 a.m. But he doesn't monitor my spending. And I'm not afraid. I don't know. When I try to explain it to the therapist, it sounds different than when we talk about it here. Sarah Mom, November 21st, 8:15 a.m. That's because you're being gaslit in real time, sweetheart. He's manipulating the therapist just like he manipulates you. This is what narcissists do. They're charming to outsiders while being cruel in private. Amanda best friend, November 21st, 9:28 a.m. Maybe you need to stop the therapy sessions. They're obviously not helping, and they might actually hurt your case later. Jerry should weigh in on this. Robert Dad, November 21st, 6:15 p.m. Jerry says keep going. The fact that you tried therapy and it didn't work will actually support the divorce filing. Shows you made good faith efforts to fix the marriage before ending it. Just make sure you're documenting that the therapist was biased toward David. I read these messages in my office at midnight, the house quiet around me, Emma asleep upstairs. The strategy was evolving in real time. They were adapting, adjusting, finding new angles. But so was I. I forwarded the screenshots to Diane with a single line. They're instructing her to claim the therapist is biased. Thoughts? Her response came within minutes. Perfect. Let her make that claim. Then we'll have documented evidence that when a neutral professional doesn't support her narrative, she attacks their credibility. Makes her look unreliable. Keep going to sessions. Let this play out. Thanksgiving Day dawned cold and bright. The kind of November morning where everything looks crystalline and fragile. Emma was up early, moving around the kitchen with nervous energy, checking and rechecking the dessert I'd picked up, making sure we had the wine, asking 3 times if I'd remembered to charge my phone. "It's going to be fine," I said, watching her fidget with her necklace. "I know. I just want it to go well. My family they've been saying things lately. About us. I want them to see that we're okay." "What kind of things?" She hesitated. "Just that they worry. That they think maybe I'm not happy. That maybe you're not good for me." I chose my words carefully, like diffusing a bomb. "And what do you tell them?" "That they're wrong. That we're working on things. That I love you." "Do you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Love me?" Emma looked at me, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw something raw and real in her eyes. Confusion, pain, genuine uncertainty. "Yes," she said. "God, David, yes. I wish I knew why it feels so complicated. Because your family is poisoning you against me. Because they want my money. Because you're caught between what you feel and what they're telling you to feel." "Marriage is complicated," I said instead. "That's why we're in therapy." The Mitchell house was exactly as I remembered, a large colonial in the suburbs, the kind of place that screamed upper-middle-class success without quite crossing into ostentation. Sarah had decorated for fall with her usual enthusiasm. Mums on the porch, a wreath on the door, miniature pumpkins lining the walkway. Robert answered when we knocked, his smile warm and paternal and completely false if you knew what I knew. "David, Emma, come in, come in." He pulled Emma into a hug, shook my hand with just a fraction too much force. "Good to see you, son." Son. As if I were family. As if he weren't actively plotting my financial destruction. Sarah appeared from the kitchen, apron on, already flushed from cooking. "Oh, good. You're here. Emma, sweetheart, come help me with the turkey." "David, Robert will get you a drink." The division was immediate and obvious. Women to the kitchen, men to the living room. Normally, I'd have offered to help in the kitchen, but I understood the game now. They wanted time alone with Emma. Time to reinforce their narrative, to ask probing questions, to remind her of Operation Freedom. Fine. Let them try. Robert handed me a bourbon. Neat. We sat in leather chairs that probably cost more than my first car, and he asked about work, about the acquisition, about my plans for the money with the careful casualness of someone conducting reconnaissance. "Must be nice," he said, swirling his own drink. "Having that kind of financial security changes your perspective on things." "It does," I agreed. "Makes you think about protection, asset management, making sure everything's structured properly." I watched his eyes sharpen. "Oh? You've been restructuring?" "Just the basics. Trusts, LLCs, tax optimization, standard stuff after a liquidity event. My financial advisor recommended it." "Smart," Robert said, but his tone was flat. "Very smart." He was calculating. I could see it, trying to figure out how much I'd protected, how much would still be accessible in a divorce, wondering if I suspected something. I smiled pleasantly, and took another sip of bourbon. Jessica arrived 20 minutes later with her husband Mark, who I'd always liked despite everything. Mark was a good guy, an engineer, straightforward, the kind of person who said what he meant. He greeted me warmly, seemed genuinely happy to see me. I wondered if he knew, if Jessica had told him about Operation Freedom, or if he was as much in the dark as I'd been a month ago. Probably the latter. Jessica was smart enough to keep her husband out of conspiracy to commit fraud. Dinner was elaborate turkey, stuffing, 3 kinds of potatoes, vegetables, rolls, pies. Sarah had outdone herself, and I made sure to compliment everything, to be the perfect guest, gracious and appreciative. The conversation flowed around safe topics at first: Mark's work, Jessica's promotion. The election, though, that got tense quickly, and Sarah changed the subject: the new restaurant downtown, Emma's marathon training. Then Sarah said almost casually, "How's therapy going, you two?" The table went quiet. Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "It's going well," I said before Emma could respond. "Dr. Brennan is excellent, very insightful. We're learning a lot about our communication patterns." "That's wonderful," Sarah said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Emma mentioned you were going. I think it's so healthy when couples invest in their relationship like that." "We're committed to making things work," I said, reaching over and taking Emma's hand. She squeezed back, but I felt the tension in her fingers. "Of course you are," Jessica added, "though therapy can be hard. Sometimes it brings up difficult truths." "It does," Emma said quietly. "It's definitely challenging." "The important thing," Robert interjected, "is that Emma feels heard, that her concerns are being taken seriously." I looked at him across the table, this man who'd shaken my hand and called me son, this man who was currently orchestrating my destruction, and I smiled. "Absolutely," I said. "Emma's happiness is my priority. Always has been." The look that passed between Sarah and Robert was brief but telling. They didn't like this. Didn't like that I was being agreeable, that I was supporting therapy, that I wasn't playing the role of the controlling husband they needed me to be. After dinner, while the others were in the living room and I was helping clear plates because of course I helped, because I was thoughtful and considerate, and not at all the monster they'd painted me as, Sarah cornered me in the kitchen. "David," she said, her voice low, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you happy? In your marriage?" The question hung between us, loaded with subtext. She was fishing, trying to gauge whether I suspected anything, whether Emma had said something, whether their plan was at risk. "I love your daughter," I said simply. "I want her to be happy and fulfilled. If she's struggling, I want to help her through it. That's why I agreed to therapy. But are you happy?" I met her eyes. "I'm working on it. With Emma. Together." Sarah nodded slowly, but I could see the dissatisfaction in her face. This wasn't the answer she wanted. She wanted me to be cold, distant, to prove their narrative. She wanted evidence. I wasn't going to give it to her. We left around 9, Emma quiet in the passenger seat, as I drove us home through streets decorated with leftover Halloween pumpkins and early Christmas lights. The world outside was preparing for joy, for celebration, for the holiday season. Inside our car, there was only silence. "That was nice," I said finally. "Was it?" Emma turned to look at me. It felt like a performance, like everyone was playing a part. What part was I playing? The perfect husband. The guy who says all the right things. The guy who's totally fine with everything. "Would you prefer I'd been difficult, argumentative? Given your family ammunition to..." I stopped myself, but not quite in time. "To what?" "To confirm their concerns about me," I finished carefully. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You know they don't trust you." "I know. Does that bother you?" "It bothers me that they've convinced you not to trust me either." "They haven't." She stopped. "I don't know what to think anymore, David. My family says one thing, you say another. The therapist says a third thing. I'm exhausted from trying to figure out who's right." I pulled into our driveway, put the car in park, turned to face her. "What does your gut tell you?" Not your family, not Dr. Brennan, not me. What do you think? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I think I'm scared. I think something's wrong, and I can't figure out what it is. I think I love you and I don't trust you, and I hate myself for feeling both things at once. It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in weeks. I'm not your enemy, Emma, I said quietly. Whatever your family thinks, whatever they've told you, I'm not trying to hurt you. Then why does it feel like you are? The question pierced something in me, sharp and clean. Because on some level, I was protecting myself, building defenses, preparing for war. And that preparation, that necessary self-preservation, created exactly the distance and coldness they'd predicted. I was becoming the person they'd accused me of being, not because I'd started that way, but because defending yourself against false accusations requires you to be strategic, guarded, careful. It was a trap with no exit. Come inside, I said. Let's go to bed. We can talk about this tomorrow. But we both knew we wouldn't. December came in cold and unforgiving, the kind of winter that settles into your bones and refuses to leave. The city transformed itself. Overnight Christmas decorations blooming on every corner, holiday music bleeding from storefronts, everyone performing joy like it was a civic duty. Emma and I moved through our lives like actors who'd forgotten we were, in the same play. We occupied the same space, slept in the same bed, went through the same motions, but something fundamental had shifted. There was a watchfulness now, a careful choreography to our interactions that hadn't existed before. Or maybe it had always been there, and I was only now paying attention. Our third therapy session was December 5th. I marked it on my calendar with the same sense of inevitability you'd mark a dentist appointment or a tax deadline, necessary, uncomfortable, unavoidable. Emma had been different in the days leading up to it, more withdrawn. I'd catch her staring at her phone with an expression I couldn't quite read, typing messages and then deleting them, her thumb hovering over the send button like she was trying to decide something important. I knew what she was deciding. I'd seen the group chat messages. Sarah, Mom, December 2nd, 9:15 a.m. The therapy isn't working. You need to be more direct about the abuse, Emma. Stop softening it. Stop letting him twist things. Jessica's sister, December 2nd, 10:22 a.m. Next session, you need to tell Dr. Brennan that you're afraid of him, that he intimidates you. Use those exact words. I'm afraid. Therapists are mandated reporters. If she thinks you're in danger, she has to document it. End quote. Emma, December 2nd, 11:47 p.m. But I'm not afraid of him. That would be lying. Amanda Best Friend, December 3rd, 7:33 a.m. You're not seeing clearly. The fear is there. You've just normalized it. That's what abuse does. It makes you think the abnormal is normal. Trust us. We can see what you can't. Robert Dad, December 3rd, 6:18 p.m. Jerry says emotional abuse cases are hard to prove without clear documentation. We need the therapist's notes to reflect genuine fear and distress. Otherwise, it's just he said, she said, and that doesn't get us the settlement we need. There it was again. The settlement we need, not the safety Emma needs or the freedom Emma deserves. The settlement, the money. They'd stop pretending, even to themselves, that this was about anything else. Dr. Brennan's office felt different that Thursday evening. Or maybe I felt different. I was tired, bone deep, exhausted from maintaining the performance, from being hyper-vigilant about every word, every gesture, every expression, from loving someone who was actively working to destroy me. How was your week? Dr. Brennan asked, settling into her chair with her notepad. Emma spoke first. She'd been doing that lately, jumping in before I could set the tone. I've been thinking a lot about our last session. About what you said regarding my feelings versus David's actions, and I think maybe I haven't been clear enough about how things really are. Emma's hands were clasped tight in her lap, knuckles white. The problem isn't just specific incidents, it's the overall dynamic, the way I feel in this marriage. Dr. Brennan nodded, made a note. Tell me about that. I feel. Emma paused, and I watched her choose her words with the care of someone constructing a building, brick by careful brick. I feel afraid sometimes. Not physically, David has never hit me or anything like that, but there's this emotional intimidation, this sense that if I disagree with him or challenge him, there will be consequences. My stomach dropped. There it was. The script her family had given her, delivered with just enough hesitation to seem authentic. Dr. Brennan's pen stopped moving. What kind of consequences? He withdraws, gets cold, makes me feel like I've done something wrong just by having my own opinion. David, Dr. Brennan turned to me. What's your response to that? I took a breath, forced myself to stay calm. This was the moment. This was where everything could tip one way or the other. I think, I said carefully, that Emma is describing her emotional experience, which is valid, but I don't recognize the behavior she's attributing to me. Yes, sometimes I need space when we disagree. Sometimes I withdraw to process my thoughts, but that's not punishment or manipulation. That's just how I handle conflict. I get quiet. I think things through. Do you feel intimidated in this relationship, Emma? Dr. Brennan asked directly. Emma hesitated. Just for a second, but I saw it, the flicker of doubt, the moment where she had to decide whether to commit to the lie or pull back. Sometimes, she said finally. Yes. Have you ever felt unsafe, physically or emotionally? Another hesitation. Longer this time. Emotionally, yes. Dr. Brennan made a longer note this time, her expression neutral but focused. I want to understand this better. Can you give me a specific example of a time when you felt emotionally unsafe with David? And that's where it fell apart. Because Emma couldn't. She tried. She talked about the Amanda investment conversation again, about times when I'd questioned her decisions, about the general feeling of being controlled. But when Dr. Brennan pressed for specifics, for concrete examples of threatening behavior or actual harm, Emma kept circling back to the same vague claims. It's hard to explain. Emma said, frustration creeping into her voice. It's subtle. It's the way he looks at me sometimes, the tone of his voice, the things he doesn't say. But what does he actually do? Dr. Brennan asked. When you feel this fear, what is David's behavior in that moment? He's calm, too calm, like he's in complete control, and I'm not. Dr. Brennan set down her pen. Emma, I want to be very clear about something. Feeling uncomfortable in a relationship is valid. Feeling like power dynamics are unequal is something we should absolutely explore. But fear, genuine fear that creates a sense of being unsafe, that's a serious allegation. And from what you're describing, I'm not hearing behavior that rises to that level. You don't believe me. Emma's voice was flat. I believe you're experiencing distress. What I'm questioning is whether the source of that distress is David's behavior, or whether it might be coming from somewhere else. Like where? Like external pressure, like family dynamics, like internalized expectations about what marriage should look like. Dr. Brennan leaned forward slightly. Emma, I've noticed that many of your concerns seem to echo specific talking points, almost like you're repeating things you've heard, rather than describing your own authentic experience. The room went silent. I could see Emma processing this, could see the war happening behind her eyes. Part of her knew Dr. Brennan was right. Part of her was hearing her mother's voice, her sister's voice, Amanda's voice, all telling her to push harder, to be more explicit, to make the therapist understand. My family cares about me, Emma said finally. They're concerned. They see things I might not see. Your family doesn't sit in this room with you and David, Doctor, Brennan said gently. I do, and what I see is a husband who shows up, who engages thoughtfully, who takes feedback, who demonstrates care for you. Are there issues? Yes, every marriage has issues, but nothing I've observed suggests abuse or intimidation. Emma stood up abruptly. I need some air. She walked out, left me sitting there with Dr. Brennan in a silence that felt like the aftermath of an explosion. Is she okay? I asked after a moment. She's processing, Dr. Brennan said. Then more carefully, David, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Is there any possibility that Emma's family is influencing her perception of your marriage? That they might have an agenda beyond her well-being? I felt the weight of everything I knew, pressing against my chest. The group chat, Operation Freedom, the 6 months of planning, the financial calculations, all of it. I wanted to show Dr. Brennan the screenshots to prove that I wasn't crazy, that there really was a conspiracy, that Emma really was being manipulated. But I couldn't. Not yet. Diane had been clear. Revealing what I knew too early would give them time to regroup, to change tactics, to destroy evidence. I think, I said slowly, that Emma's family has strong opinions about our marriage, and I think those opinions might not be based on the full picture. Dr. Brennan nodded. I'm going to recommend something, and you can both decide whether you're comfortable with it. I'd like to have a session with just Emma. And then, if you're willing, a session where we bring in one or more of her family members to discuss their concerns directly. My heart rate spiked. A session with her family, with Sarah and Robert and Jessica, all in one room, forced to articulate their accusations in front of a professional observer. It was either the best idea I'd ever heard or a trap that would explode in my face. I'm open to it, I said. Whatever helps. Emma came back 10 minutes later, her eyes red but her expression composed. Dr. Brennan proposed the plan individual session with Emma, then a family session if appropriate. Emma agreed, though I could see the reluctance in the set of her shoulders. We scheduled her individual session for the following week. The family session, if it happened, would be after that. In the car afterward, Emma was silent for a long time. Then, you think my family is the problem. I think your family loves you, and I think sometimes love can become overprotection. Sometimes people who care about us see threats that aren't really there. Or sometimes the people closest to us see threats we're too close to recognize. That's possible too, I admitted. That's why we're in therapy, to figure out what's real. She turned to look at me, and in the dim light from the dashboard, her face was a study in confusion and pain. What if I don't know anymore? What if I can't tell the difference between what I feel and what I've been told to feel? It was the most honest question she'd asked in months. Then we figure it out together, I said. That's what marriage is supposed to be. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was already too late, if the poison had already spread too far, if there was any way back from this. The group chat that night was chaos. Emma, December 5th, 10:47 p.m. The therapist basically said she doesn't believe me, said my concerns sound like talking points, asked if my family is influencing me. Sarah, Mom, December 5th, 11:03 p.m. What? That's completely inappropriate. She's supposed to be neutral. This is exactly what I was worried about. She's been charmed by David and now she's gaslighting you. Jessica's sister, December 5th, 11:15 p.m. You need to report her. File a complaint with the licensing board. This is unethical as hell. Amanda best friend, December 5th, 11:28 p.m. Or just stop going. This therapist is clearly not equipped to recognize emotional abuse. She's doing more harm than good. Robert Dad, December 6th, 6:42 a.m. Don't stop going yet. Jerry says we need documentation that you tried therapy and it failed. But at the next session, you need to be explicit about your concerns. Tell her the therapist is biased. Get that on record. Emma, December 6th, 7:55 a.m. She wants to do a family session with you guys, to hear your concerns directly. The chat went silent for almost an hour. I could imagine them all, phones in hand, trying to figure out what this meant, whether it was an opportunity or a threat. Sarah Mom, December 6th, 9:12 a.m. Absolutely not. We're not going to be interrogated by some therapist who's already shown she's on David's side. Decline the session. Jessica's sister, December 6th, 9:33 a.m. Agreed. This feels like a trap. She's going to try to make US look like the problem. Robert Dad, December 6th, 10:45 a.m. Hold on, let me talk to Jerry. There might be an angle here. I watched this exchange with a growing sense of not quite satisfaction. Something darker. I was watching them scramble, watching their carefully constructed narrative threatened by the prospect of professional scrutiny. They'd been so confident operating in the shadows, coaching Emma through private messages, building their case where no one could challenge them. But Dr. Brennan had just turned on the lights. I was in my office the next evening when my phone rang. Marcus. Hey, I answered. What's up? We need to talk. Can you come over? Now? There was something in his voice, urgency mixed with concern. I grabbed my keys. On my way. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Marcus's living room while his wife, Jennifer, made herself scarce upstairs. Marcus paced, which was unlike him. Marcus was usually the calm one, the steady presence. I fucked up, he said finally. My stomach dropped. What happened? Emma's sister called me today. Jessica. Said she wanted to talk to me about you. About concerns her family has. Did you talk to her? Not on the phone. She asked to meet for coffee. And like an idiot, I said yes. He ran his hand through his hair. David, she spent an hour trying to get me to admit that you're controlling. That you isolate Emma. That you have anger issues. She was fishing hard. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're one of the most level-headed people I know. That I've never seen you be anything but supportive of Emma. That this whole narrative they're pushing is bullshit. He stopped pacing, looked at me directly. But here's the thing, she was recording our conversation. I saw her phone on the table, screen on, timer running. She was documenting me defending you. I processed this. So now they have your statement on record. Yeah, and I'm worried I said something they can twist. I got heated toward the end. Told her they were poisoning Emma against you. She asked if I thought they were conspiring against you, her exact word, and I said it sure as hell looked that way. Conspiracy. Jessica had been probing to see if I'd told Marcus anything, if I suspected anything. And Marcus, brilliant Marcus, had walked right up to the edge without falling off. It's okay, I said. You didn't say anything that isn't defensible. But now they know I'm on your side, which means they might try to discredit me, paint me as your accomplice or something. They can try, but Marcus, you're a successful business owner, a respected member of the community, my business partner. Your character testimony carries weight. More than theirs, honestly. He sat down heavily on the couch. This is so fucked up. These are Emma's parents, her sister. How did it get here? Money, I said simply. $4.2 million minus taxes. That's how. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, are you going to show Emma the group chat? Make her see what they're doing? I'd thought about this question 1,000 times. At 3 a.m., lying next to Emma while she slept, during therapy sessions while she repeated their talking points, every time I saw her torn between what she felt and what she was being told to feel. Not yet, I said. If I show her now, they'll just say I fabricated it, that I'm trying to turn her against her family. They'll paint it as more proof of my controlling, manipulative nature. So when it matters, when we're in front of a judge, when there are legal consequences for perjury, when the truth becomes undeniable because it's backed by professional documentation and legal authority. You're really going to let this go all the way to divorce court? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe Emma will wake up before then. Maybe she'll see through it. Maybe there's still a chance to salvage this. But I didn't believe it. Not really. The truth was, we'd passed the point of no return somewhere back in November, maybe earlier. The marriage was already over. We were just going through the motions now, playing out the end game, waiting for the inevitable. That weekend, Emma went to visit her parents alone. Said she needed to talk to them about the therapy sessions, about what Dr. Brennan had said, about the confusion she was feeling. I knew what was really happening. Emergency meeting of Operation Freedom, regrouping, strategy adjustment. I stayed home, sat in my office, reviewed my documentation, bank records, communications, character references, screenshots, medical records, every piece of evidence, carefully organized, indexed, ready to deploy. Diane had called it an evidence fortress. She'd said it was the most thorough defensive case she'd ever seen. But sitting there alone in my house, in the home Emma and I had bought together, where we'd made love and fought and reconciled and planned our future, it didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like a mausoleum. I was building a monument to a marriage that was already dead. I just hadn't buried it yet. My phone buzzed. Text from Emma. Staying at my parents' tonight. Need some space to think. We can talk tomorrow. I stared at the message for a long time. This was new. She'd never stayed at her parents without me before, not in 8 years of marriage. I typed back, "Okay. Take all the time you need. I love you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Thank you." Not, "I love you too," just, "Thank you." I sat there in the darkness of my office, the only light coming from my computer screen, and I felt something inside me finally break. Not dramatically, not with tears or rage or any kind of catharsis. Just a quiet, clean snap, like a bone that's been under stress for too long finally giving way. The woman I'd married was gone. Maybe she'd been gone for months. Maybe I was only now admitting it. What was left was a stranger who looked like Emma, sounded like Emma, but had been so thoroughly reprogrammed by her family that there was nothing of the original person left to save. I opened my laptop, pulled up the file where I kept all the evidence, and I started writing. Not a legal brief, not a strategy document. A letter. To Emma. To the woman she used to be. To the ghost of our marriage. I wrote for hours. About when we met, about falling in love, about the promises we'd made, about trust and betrayal and how love alone isn't enough when one person's family decides to weaponize them against you. About how I'd known for months what she was planning and had chosen not to confront her, not to stop her, not to fight to save something that had already been destroyed from the inside. About how I'd built my fortress not to hurt her, but to survive her. I wrote until my hands cramped, until my eyes burned, until there was nothing left to say. Then I saved the document in my encrypted files, closed my laptop, and went to bed. Alone. In the house that would soon be just mine. In the life I'd have to rebuild from the ruins of this one. The war was coming, and I was ready. Emma came home Sunday afternoon with the kind of careful casualness that people adopt when they're trying to pretend everything is normal while the world crumbles around them. She let herself in quietly. I heard the key in the lock from my office, heard her footsteps pause in the entryway, like she was gathering courage before proceeding further into enemy territory. Because that's what our home had become. Not a sanctuary. A battlefield with throw pillows and wedding photos. I found her in the kitchen, unpacking groceries she'd apparently stopped for on the way back. Organic blueberries, oat milk, dark chocolate with sea salt. All the things she always bought. All the familiar rituals of a marriage that was bleeding out slowly on our hardwood floors. "Hey," I said from the doorway. She startled, even though she had to have known I was home. "Hey, I picked up some things." "I see that." We stood there in a silence that felt like drowning. Like all the words we weren't saying were filling the room with invisible water, rising inch by inch until breathing became impossible. "How was your parents?" I asked finally. "Fine. Good. We talked a lot. She put the milk in the refrigerator without looking at me. About us. About therapy. About everything." "And what conclusions did you reach?" Now she did look at me, and there was something different in her eyes. Harder. More resolved. Like she'd gone to her parents' house as one person and come back as someone else. "I think we need more space," she said. "Not a separation or anything. Just, I think I need to stay at my parents' a few nights a week for a while. To get perspective. To figure out what I really feel versus what I'm being told to feel." The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. She was going to get perspective by spending more time with the people who'd been systematically destroying that perspective for 6 months. "Okay," I said. "If that's what you need." She blinked, surprised. "You're not going to argue? Would it change your mind?" "No. Then why would I argue?" I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly exhausted. "Emma, I'm not going to fight to keep you somewhere you don't want to be. If you need space, take it. If you need time with your family, have it." "That's not," she stopped. frustrated. "You're doing it again. Being so reasonable, it makes me feel crazy." "What do you want me to do? Yell? Forbid you from staying at your parents'? Give you evidence that I'm the controlling asshole they say I am? I want you to feel something." Her voice cracked. "I want you to be angry or hurt or scared. I want you to fight for us, instead of just accepting everything with this calm, reasonable distance." And there it was, the impossible position. If I fought, I was controlling. If I didn't fight, I didn't care. "I do feel something," I said quietly. "I feel like I'm losing you. I feel like no matter what I do, what I say, how I show up, it won't be enough. Because the people you love most in the world have already decided I'm the villain, and nothing I do will change that narrative." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "They're trying to protect me." "From what, Emma? From a husband who loves you? Who's never hurt you? Who's supported every dream, every goal, every choice you've ever made? From a husband who restructured all his assets the moment he got money." The words came out sharp, accusatory. "My dad looked into it. You moved everything into protected accounts, created LLCs, set up trusts, like you were preparing for something." So there it was. Robert had been digging, just like I'd suspected. "I was preparing for financial responsibility," I said evenly. "Every financial advisor recommends asset protection after a liquidity event. It's not sinister. It's basic wealth management. Or it's preparation for divorce. For making sure I get as little as possible." "Is that what you want to talk about? Divorce?" "Because if you're planning to leave me, Emma, I'd rather know now than play this game for months while you and your family strategize about how to maximize your settlement." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Not because they weren't true, they were absolutely true, but because I'd revealed too much, shown too much of my hand. Emma went very still. "What are you talking about?" I could have backtracked. Could have said I was just hurt, just lashing out, just paranoid from all the family tension. Instead, I said, "I'm talking about the fact that for months, you and your family have been treating our marriage like a problem to solve rather than a relationship to nurture. I'm talking about the fact that every conversation with your parents ends with you coming home more distant, more suspicious, more convinced that I'm something I'm not. You don't know what they say to me." "Oh, but I do," I thought. "I know exactly what they say. Every word, every strategy, every lie." "You're right," I said out loud. "I don't, but I see the effects. And Emma, I'm tired. I'm so tired of defending myself against accusations that don't make sense. Of proving I'm not abusive to a wife who should already know that. Of watching the woman I love disappear piece by piece into her family's narrative about who I am." She wiped her eyes, but more tears came. "Maybe their narrative is true. Maybe I've just been too blind to see it." "Do you really believe that?" The question hung between us, like smoke. "I don't know what I believe anymore," she whispered. Emma started spending Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights at her parents' house. A trial schedule, she called it. Temporary space while she figured things out. I knew what it really was. Phase 2.5 of Operation Freedom. Gradual separation. Building the case that we'd been living apart, that the marriage had broken down, that divorce was the inevitable conclusion of an already failed relationship. Our therapy sessions continued, but now there was a new dynamic. Dr. Brennan had scheduled Emma's individual session for December 12th, and I could see Emma preparing for it like a lawyer preparing for trial. She'd started keeping that journal again. I'd see her at night, laptop open, typing with fierce concentration, building her evidence. I wondered what she was writing. Probably the same distorted narratives. December 10th. David agreed too easily when I said I needed space. This proves he doesn't really care about our marriage. He's emotionally distant and disconnected. The fact that fighting for her would be framed as controlling and not fighting would be framed as not caring was just. It was elegant. Really. A perfect trap. The group chat had gone into overdrive. Sarah, Mom, December 9th, 8:22 a.m. Good job establishing the separation pattern, sweetheart. Jerry says this is important for the filing. Shows you were taking steps to protect yourself before making it official. Jessica's sister, December 9th, 9:15 a.m. How much have you saved now? You need at least $15K before you can fully move out. Emma, December 9th, 10:47 p.m. About $7,000. I'm transferring more this week. David hasn't noticed, or hasn't said anything. I'd noticed. Of course I'd noticed. Every withdrawal was documented, time-stamped, categorized in the spreadsheet Diane and I maintained. Robert Dad, December 10th, 6:33 a.m. The individual therapy session is crucial. This is your chance to tell your story without David there to manipulate the narrative. Doctor, Brennan needs to hear about the financial control, the isolation, the emotional abuse. Be specific. Be emotional. Make her understand what you've been living with. Amanda, best friend, December 10th, 11:28 a.m. And if she still doesn't get it, if she still seems biased toward David, that's important too. Document it. We can use that to show the system failed you, that you tried to get help and were gaslit even by professionals. I read these messages in my office, the door locked, the house quiet around me. Emma was at her parents' again, Monday night. Our bed would be empty. I'd stopped sleeping well, would lie there in the dark, on my side of the mattress that we'd bought together 4 years ago, and I'd think about all the nights Emma and I had fallen asleep tangled together, her head on my chest, my hand in her hair. Those people were gone. We'd murdered them slowly, day by day, with suspicion and strategy and the careful documentation of our own destruction. December 12th arrived gray and cold, the kind of day that feels like the world is holding its breath. Emma had her individual session at 4 p.m. I knew because it was still on our shared calendar, one of the few things we hadn't separated yet. I spent the hour at a coffee shop downtown, laptop open, trying to work but mostly just staring at the screen, wondering what Emma was saying in that room, whether she was following her family's script or speaking her own truth, whether there was even a difference anymore. My phone buzzed at 5:03 p.m. Text from Emma. Session ran long. Going straight to my parents from here. See you Wednesday. No, I love you. No update on how it went. Just the basic logistics of our increasingly separate lives. I drove home through rush hour traffic, the city lit up with Christmas lights that seemed obscenely cheerful given the circumstances. Every house decorated, every storefront gleaming, everyone pretending the world was magical and good. I was pulling into my driveway when my phone rang. Dr. Brennan. That was unusual. Therapists didn't typically call after individual sessions. Hello? David, it's Dr. Brennan. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Of course. I had my individual session with Emma today. A pause. I'm calling because I have some concerns, and I think you should be aware of them. My heart started pounding. Okay. Emma made some serious allegations in our session today. She claimed that you've been financially controlling, that you monitor her spending, that you've restructured your assets specifically to keep money away from her. She also said she's afraid of how you might react if she tries to leave the relationship. I sat in my car in the dark driveway, engine off, phone pressed to my ear. Dr. Brennan, I've never been financially controlling. We have a joint account that Emma has full access to. I've never monitored her spending. I review our statements for normal financial management, not surveillance. And the asset restructuring was done for legitimate wealth management purposes after my business acquisition. I understand. And David, I want to be clear based on our couples sessions. I don't see evidence supporting these claims. What I see is someone who's been heavily influenced by outside voices, who's trying to fit her experience into a narrative that doesn't quite match reality. Relief flooded through me, but it was cold relief, clinical, not the warm kind that makes you feel better. But Dr. Brennan continued, I'm also concerned because Emma is clearly in distress, real distress. She's convinced herself, or been convinced, that she's in an unsafe situation, and when someone believes that, regardless of whether it's objectively true, It creates a crisis. What do you recommend? Honestly, I think we need that family session. I need to hear directly from her parents and sister what they're telling Emma, because either they're seeing something I'm not, or they're actively contributing to her distress. Either way, we can't move forward without addressing it. And if they refuse to come? Then that tells us something too, doesn't it? Dr. Brennan's voice was gentle but firm. David, I'm going to be direct with you. I think Emma is being manipulated. I think her family has an agenda that may not be about her well-being, but I can't say that to her, not yet, not without proof. She needs to see it for herself. Will she see it? I don't know. Some people wake up. Some people don't. We talked for a few more minutes. Logistics, next steps, scheduling. Dr. Brennan would propose the family session at our next couples appointment. She'd frame it as necessary for Emma's healing, for understanding the full context of her concerns. When I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, watching the Christmas lights on my neighbor's house blink on and off in precise rhythm. Red, green, white. Red, green, white. A pattern, predictable, meaningless. The next day, I met with Diane. Dr. Brennan called me, I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. After Emma's individual session, Diane looked up sharply. That's unusual. She's concerned. Emma made explicit allegations of financial abuse and said she's afraid of me. Did Dr. Brennan believe her? No, she sees through it. But she's worried because Emma believes it, or thinks she believes it. She wants to do a family session. Diane leaned back, fingers steepled. That's either brilliant or disastrous. Potentially both. Emma's family will never agree to it. Probably not. But their refusal will be telling. She pulled out her tablet, made some notes. If they decline, it suggests they're afraid of professional scrutiny. If they agree and then attack you or the therapist, we have witnesses to their behavior. Either way, we win. This doesn't feel like winning. Winning rarely does, in cases like this. Diane's voice softened slightly. David, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen marriages destroyed by infidelity, addiction, abuse, all the classic reasons. But I've also seen them destroyed by family interference, by money, by people who love their relatives but don't love them wisely. This is the latter. Does it matter? Destroyed is destroyed. It matters for you, because when this ends, and it will end, you'll know you weren't the villain they painted you as. You'll have documentation proving it. You'll have professional validation. You'll have the truth on your side. Will that be enough? She looked at me for a long moment. It'll have to be. Wednesday evening, Emma came home. She'd been at her parents' for 2 nights, and she walked in like a guest in her own house, tentative and uncertain. We need to talk, she said. We sat in the living room where we'd hosted dinner parties and watched movies and made love on the couch during a thunderstorm 3 summers ago. Now it felt like a courtroom. Dr. Brennan wants to do a family session, Emma said, with my parents and Jessica. I know, she told me. You talked to her? Emma's voice went sharp. About my individual session? She called me. She had concerns about some things you said. So she violated my confidentiality to... She didn't violate anything, Emma. She's worried about you, about us. She thinks your family's involvement in our marriage might be part of the problem. My family is trying to help me. Are they? I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was racing. Because from where I'm sitting, every conversation you have with them leaves you more confused, more anxious, more convinced that I'm someone I'm not. That doesn't sound like help. That sounds like poison. Don't talk about my family like that. Then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that spending time with them makes you feel better about us, about our marriage, about me. She opened her mouth, closed it, couldn't. The family session, I said quietly. Are they going to agree to it? I don't know. They think Dr. Brennan is biased, that she's already on your side. Or maybe they're afraid of being questioned by someone who can see through their narrative. You sound paranoid. Do I? I stood up. walked to the window. Outside, the December darkness was absolute. Emma, answer me honestly. Do you actually believe I'm abusive? That I control you? That I've isolated you from your family and friends? Silence. Do you believe, I continued, turning to face her, that I restructured my assets to screw you over in a divorce I didn't even know was coming? Her face went pale. I never said divorce. Your father did, to his lawyer friend Jerry, the one who's been advising your family on how to build a case against me. I watched the realization hit her that I knew more than I'd been letting on, that I'd been aware of things, that maybe I wasn't as oblivious as she'd thought. She started. It doesn't matter how. What matters is that this has all been a performance, Emma. Your family's performance, with you as the star. And I've been watching from the audience, knowing exactly how it ends, unable to stop it because stopping it would just prove I'm everything they say I am. She stood up, shaking. I can't do this right now. You never can. That's the point. Every time we get close to the truth, you retreat. Back to your parents. Back to their version of reality. Back to the narrative where I'm the villain and you're the victim. Maybe you are the villain. The words came out raw, desperate. Maybe I just can't see it because I've been gaslit for so long. By whom, Emma? By me, who's never laid a hand on you, never controlled your money, never prevented you from seeing your family or friends? Or by them, who've spent 6 months convincing you that normal marriage conflicts are actually abuse? She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. I'm going back to my parents. Of course you are. She paused in the doorway, turned back. The family session. They're not going to agree to it. I know. Dr. Brennan will think that means something. That they're hiding something. Are they? She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Then she was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click that sounded like an ending. I stood alone in our living room, surrounded by the furniture we'd chosen together, the art we'd collected, the life we'd built, and I felt something settle into place. A decision. A resignation. The marriage was over. All that remained was the paperwork. Christmas music started playing in every store, on every street corner, relentless and hollow. The world insisted on joy while my marriage decomposed in real time, and the cognitive dissonance was enough to make you question reality itself. Emma's family declined the therapy session. Dr. Brennan called me on December 15th to deliver the news, her voice carrying a professional neutrality that didn't quite mask her opinion. Sarah Mitchell called my office this morning, she said. She stated that the family doesn't feel comfortable being interrogated by a therapist who has already demonstrated bias toward you. She said they've consulted with their own counselor who agrees that family therapy in this situation would be inappropriate. Their own counselor, I repeated. Let me guess, someone who's heard only their version of events? I would assume so. David, I want to be clear about what this means from a clinical perspective. When a family refuses to participate in therapy that could benefit their loved one, when they characterize professional inquiry as interrogation, when they seek validation from sources that only hear their narrative, these are red flags. Can you tell Emma that? I can share my observations. Whether she hears them is another matter. Dr. Brennan paused. I'm recommending we continue couples therapy, but I'm also recommending that Emma seek individual therapy with someone other than me. Someone who can help her explore her family dynamics without the complication of also treating your marriage. She won't do it. They'll tell her not to. Probably, but I need to make the recommendation anyway. For the record. Everything was for the record now. Every conversation, every decision, every therapeutic observation, all of it building toward the legal battle that was becoming inevitable. Our next couples session is scheduled for the 19th, Dr. Brennan continued. I'll address the family's refusal then. I'll also be documenting my clinical opinion that Emma is experiencing significant external influence that's impacting her perception of her marriage. After we hung up, I sat in my office and added another entry to my evidence file. December 15th. Mitchell family refuses family therapy session. Dr. Brennan notes this as clinically significant. Red flag. The file had grown massive. Hundreds of pages of documentation, bank statements proving Emma's financial autonomy, text messages showing my support for her career and friendships. Medical records establishing her anxiety predated our relationship. Character references from colleagues, friends, Marcus, screenshots of the group chat, Dr. Brennan's session notes, and observations. It was a fortress, just like Diane had said. It was also a monument to failure. Because if the marriage had been healthy, if we'd been what we'd promised to be to each other, none of this documentation would be necessary. I'd be living my life instead of archiving its destruction. The group chat erupted with celebration when Emma told them about the family's refusal. Emma, December 15th, 6:47 p.m. Mom called Dr. Brennan and declined the family session. She said the therapist was biased and it wouldn't be productive. Sarah, Mom, December 15th, 7:03 p.m. Damn right I did. I'm not going to sit there and be gaslit by some therapist David has charmed. We know the truth about him, and we don't need professional validation for that. Jessica, December 15th, 7:22 p.m. Good call, Mom. That session was a trap. She would have tried to make US look like the problem instead of focusing on David's abuse. Robert, Dad, December 15th, 8:45 p.m. Jerry says, "This is fine. Actually works in our favor. Shows that even therapy couldn't fix the marriage, that the problems are too deep. Strengthens the case for irreconcilable differences." Amanda, best friend, December 15th, 9:18 p.m. How are you doing, Em? This must be so hard. Emma, December 15th, 10:52 p.m. I'm okay. Sad. Confused. David said something the other day about knowing more than he's been letting on. It freaked me out. Like maybe he suspects something. Sarah, Mom, December 15th, 11:14 p.m. He's trying to intimidate you, make you paranoid. Classic abuser tactic. Don't let him get in your head. Jessica's sister, December 15th, 11:33 p.m. Have you been careful with the money transfers? Making sure he can't trace them? Emma, December 15th, 11:47 p.m. Yeah, I use the ATM at the grocery store. Take out cash, deposit it at Mom and Dad's bank. Nothing that would show up as a direct transfer to another account. I read this exchange 3 times, each reading revealing new layers of calculation. They'd thought through everything. The logistics, the optics, the legal strategy. This wasn't amateur hour. This was a coordinated operation executed by people who'd consulted lawyers and planned for contingencies. The only thing they hadn't planned for was me knowing about it from the beginning. Our therapy session on December 19th felt like a funeral. Emma arrived separately. She'd started doing that, saying she needed the drive time to mentally prepare. We sat on opposite ends of Dr. Brennan's couch, a canyon of space between us that might as well have been miles. I spoke with Emma's mother this week, Dr. Brennan began, regarding the family session. She declined to participate. I know, Emma said quietly. She told me. Can you help me understand her concerns? Emma shifted uncomfortably. She thinks you've already made up your mind, that you're on David's side, and the session would just be an opportunity for you to attack them. Is that what you think? I don't know what to think anymore. Dr. Brennan made a note. Emma, I want to share something with you, and I need you to really hear it. In my professional opinion, based on months of observation, your family's characterization of David as abusive or controlling is not supported by the evidence I've seen. What I have seen is a husband who shows up, engages honestly, takes feedback, and demonstrates consistent care for you. You don't see what happens at home, Emma said, her voice defensive. You're right, I don't, which is why I've asked for specific examples, for concrete instances of controlling or abusive behavior. And Emma, you haven't been able to provide them. What you've provided are your feelings, which are valid, but feelings alone don't constitute abuse. So you're saying I'm making it up? Tears started down Emma's face. I'm saying I think you've been told you're being abused so many times that you've started to interpret normal relationship dynamics through that lens. And when your family refuses to come to a session where their claims might be examined, when they characterize professional inquiry as attack, That suggests to me that they're not interested in your healing. They're interested in maintaining their narrative. Emma stood up abruptly. I can't do this. Emma, Dr. Brennan started. No, I'm done. I'm done with therapy. I'm done with being told I'm too influenced by my family. I'm done with all of it. She grabbed her purse, looked at me with something that might have been hatred, or might have been desperation, or might have been both. I want a divorce. The words landed in the room like a bomb, and in the ringing silence that followed, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Finally, we could stop pretending, stop performing, stop going through the motions of a marriage that had been dead for months. Okay, I said quietly. Emma blinked. What? Okay. If that's what you want, then okay. I'm not going to fight you on it. She looked stunned, like she'd expected me to beg, to plead, to give her evidence of my desperation that she could document and use. Just like that? Just like that. Emma, I love you. Or, I loved who you were before all this. But I'm not going to force you to stay in a marriage you want to leave. You're right. We're done. Dr. Brennan watched this exchange with careful eyes, her pen moving across her notepad. More documentation, more evidence of the moment everything officially ended. Emma left without another word. I sat there with Dr. Brennan in the aftermath, the Christmas music from the office next door bleeding through the walls, singing about joy and peace and goodwill toward men. That was probably inevitable, Dr. Brennan said finally. Yeah, for what it's worth, David, I think you handled that with remarkable dignity. Doesn't feel dignified. Feels like losing. Sometimes the dignified thing and the losing thing are the same thing. She closed her notepad. I'll write up my final notes on your couple's therapy. If either of you needs them for legal proceedings, they'll be available. Legal proceedings. Divorce court. Lawyers and judges and the formal dissolution of everything Emma and I had built together. It was really happening. I called Diane from my car in the parking lot. She asked for a divorce, I said, when she answered. In the therapy session? Yep, in front of Dr. Brennan. Just announced it and walked out. I could hear Diane smile through the phone. David, do you understand what a gift she just gave you? A gift? She initiated the divorce, in front of a witness, after her family refused to participate in therapy that could have helped the marriage. After months of documented attempts on your part to work on the relationship, she looks like the one who gave up. She looks like the one who refused help. I don't care about looking good, Diane. I just want this to be over. I know. But trust me, when we're in court, when she's claiming you were abusive and controlling, the fact that you fought to save the marriage while she walked away will matter. A lot. We talked logistics. Diane would prepare the response to whatever divorce filing Emma's lawyer submitted. We'd reviewed our asset protection. Everything was locked down, documented, defensible. Emma would be entitled to a reasonable settlement, but not the millions her family had been planning for. When do you think she'll file? I asked. Probably waiting until after the holidays. No one wants to deal with divorce paperwork during Christmas. My guess is early January. But she was wrong. Emma filed on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. The process server showed up at my house at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. I was in my office, reviewing code for a consulting project, when the doorbell rang. A young woman with a clipboard and an apologetic expression handed me an envelope. David Park? You've been served. I took the envelope, signed her form, closed the door. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage. Emma Mitchell Park versus David Park, filed in Superior Court, citing irreconcilable differences. There were other documents too. A request for temporary spousal support, a motion for temporary restraining order based on alleged emotional abuse and financial control, an emergency request for access to joint accounts and assets. I sat down at my kitchen table, the table where Emma and I had eaten 1,000 meals, had morning coffee, had late-night conversations about our future, and I read every word. The petition painted me as a controlling, emotionally abusive husband who had isolated Emma from her family, monitored her finances, and created an environment of fear and intimidation. It claimed I had restructured my assets, specifically to hide money from her, It requested that the court award her 50% of all marital assets, including my business acquisition proceeds, the house, and my retirement accounts. It was Operation Freedom, finally executed. 6 months of planning, finally in black and white legal text. Everything they discussed in that group chat, now filed with the court, as if it were truth. I called Diane. She filed, I said, including a request for a restraining order. Based on what allegations? I read her the relevant sections: emotional abuse, financial control, intimidation, fear for her safety. Diane was quiet for a moment. Then, file the screenshots. What? The group chat. All of it. File it with your response. Let her family see that you know. Let them see that you've known from the beginning. Let them see that every move they planned, you documented. Let them see that their operation was transparent from day one. That'll destroy any chance of reconciliation. David, her voice was gentle but firm, there is no reconciliation. She filed for divorce 2 days before Christmas and requested a restraining order against you. She's not coming back. The only question now is whether you're going to let her lies stand unchallenged or whether you're going to fight back with the truth. I looked around my kitchen, at the photos on the refrigerator, Emma and me at the beach, at Jessica's wedding, at our own wedding 8 years ago. Young and happy and convinced we'd figured out how to be in love forever. We'd been so stupid, so naive, so unprepared for what money and family and suspicion could do to even the strongest foundation. File everything? I said. Every screenshot, every piece of evidence, every documentation of every lie. I want them to know that I know. I want them to see exactly how thoroughly they failed. Christmas Eve, I spent alone. Emma had already cleared out more of her things while I was at work. Clothes, toiletries, books, half the photo albums. The house felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with missing objects and everything to do with missing the life those objects represented. Marcus called around 7 p.m. Come over. Jennifer made too much food and we're not letting you sit alone on Christmas Eve. I almost said no, almost stayed in my empty house with my evidence files and my legal documents and my vindication, but I went. Marcus and Jennifer's house was warm and loud and full of their kids' chaos. They'd invited me knowing I was in the middle of a divorce, knowing I was probably miserable, and they made space for me anyway. Didn't ask invasive questions, didn't offer platitudes, just gave me a seat at their table and treated me like family. Over dinner, Marcus's oldest daughter asked me, "Where's Aunt Emma?" The table went quiet. "She's with her family tonight," I said. "We're spending Christmas separately this year." "Are you getting divorced?" "Sophia," Jennifer started, but I held up a hand. "It's okay. Yeah, Sophia, we are. That's sad. It is sad, but sometimes people can't figure out how to stay together even when they want to. Sometimes families get broken and you can't fix them." She thought about this seriously. "My friend Lucy's parents got divorced. Her dad married someone new, and now she has a stepmom she likes better than her real mom." "Sophia, that's not..." Marcus tried to intervene. "It's true, Dad," Lucy told me. Everyone laughed, and the tension broke, and I felt something in my chest loosen slightly. The world would keep turning. Kids would keep saying inappropriate things at dinner. Life would keep happening whether my marriage survived or not. Later, after the kids were in bed, Marcus and I sat in his living room with bourbon and the kind of comfortable silence that only comes from decades of friendship. "You doing okay?" he asked. "No, but I will be. The restraining order is bullshit. I know. You're going to fight it? With every piece of evidence I have." He nodded, took a sip of his drink. "I wrote you a character reference. Gave it to your lawyer last week. Talked about the 20 years I've known you, the kind of person you are, how you've always treated Emma. Figured it might help." I felt my throat tighten. "Thank you." Also told them I'd testify. In court, if it comes to that. About the conversation I had with Jessica, about how they're orchestrating this whole thing. I'm not letting them destroy you, David. Not without a fight. We sat there in the quiet, 2 men in their 30s who'd thought they had life figured out, learning that you never really do. You know what the worst part is? I said after a while. I still love her. Even knowing everything, even after all of this, there's still a part of me that loves the woman I married. Not the woman she's become, but the woman she was. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. Feels like weakness. Love usually does. On Christmas morning, I woke up alone in my half-empty house. No Emma next to me. No stockings hung. No excited plans for the day. Just silence and winter sunlight and the slow, steady ache of everything I'd lost. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Sarah Mitchell. I want you to know that Emma is safe with us, surrounded by people who love her. I hope you'll do the right thing and not contest the divorce. Let her go with dignity. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, I know about Operation Freedom. I know about every message, every plan, every lie. See you in court. I hit send before I could second guess it. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. I could imagine the panic in the Mitchell household. Sarah showing the message to Robert, to Jessica, to Emma, all of them realizing that their secret operation had never been secret at all. That I'd been watching, documenting, preparing, while they plotted, that they'd underestimated me completely. My phone rang 5 minutes later. Emma, I answered. Merry Christmas. What did you say to my mother? Her voice was shaking. The truth. That I know everything. That I've known for months. Known what? About the group chat. About Operation Freedom. About the 6 months you and your family spent planning to frame me as an abuser, so you could take half my money. Silence. Long, terrible silence. I can explain, she started. Don't. There's nothing to explain, Emma. You made your choice. You chose their narrative over our reality. You chose their money over our marriage. And now you'll live with the consequences of that choice. David. See you in court. Bring your evidence. I'll bring mine. I hung up, and for the first time in months, I felt something almost like peace. The war was finally out in the open. No more pretending. No more performance. Just truth against lies. And truth, properly documented and strategically deployed, was about to win. The Mitchell family group chat went dark for exactly 47 minutes after I sent that text to Sarah. 47 minutes of what I imagine was pure chaos, phones being passed around, voices raised, accusations flying about who had been careless, who had exposed them, how I could possibly know. 47 minutes of their carefully constructed operation crumbling in real time as they realized the prey had been watching the hunters all along. Then the messages started again, and Marcus's technical backdoor delivered them to me like clockwork. Sarah, Mom, December 25th, 11:23 a.m. How does he know? Emma, did you tell him about the chat? Emma, December 25th, 11:26 a.m. No, I don't know how he knows. I've been so careful. Robert Dad, December 25th, 11:34 a.m. Called Jerry. Emergency meeting tomorrow morning. If David has evidence of our communications, we need to know what our exposure is. Jessica, December 25th, 11:47 a.m. This is bad. This is really bad. If he has the chat history, he has documentation of everything. The financial planning, the coaching Emma on what to say to the therapist, all of it. Amanda best friend, December 25th, 12:03 p.m. Can he actually use that in court? Isn't it illegal to access someone else's private messages? Robert Dad, December 25th, 12:28 p.m. Jerry says if he accessed them illegally, they'd be inadmissible. But if someone gave him access, or if Emma's phone was somehow compromised legally, we might be in trouble. Life. Sarah, FMA, December 25th, 1:15 p.m. Emma, think carefully. Did you ever leave your phone unlocked around him? Did he ever have access to your devices? Emma, December 25th, 1:47 p.m. I don't know. Maybe? I mean, we live together. He could have looked at my phone while I was sleeping or in the shower or, God, I feel so stupid. I read these messages in my office, Christmas dinner from Marcus and Jennifer's house, sitting cold on a plate beside me. They were scrambling, trying to construct a narrative where I was the villain who'd violated Emma's privacy rather than the target of their conspiracy. The beautiful irony was that I hadn't violated anything. Sarah had added me to the chat herself by accident at 2:43 a.m. on that November morning that felt like a lifetime ago. Everything I knew because they'd made a mistake. One mistake, one careless thumb swipe in the middle of the night. That's all it took to unravel 6 months of planning. My phone rang on December 26th at 9:47 a.m., unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from a man who introduced himself as Gerald Jerry Pemberton, attorney at law, representing Emma Mitchell Park in her dissolution of marriage proceedings. Mr. Park, his voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of someone who'd made a career out of conflict. I'm calling to discuss the allegations you've made regarding private communications between my client and her family. I'd like to offer you an opportunity to resolve this matter amicably before we proceed with formal discovery. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. I forwarded the voicemail to Diane with a single line. They're worried. Her response came within minutes. Good. Let them worry. Don't call him back. Let's file our response first. We set the tone, not them. Diane's office on December 27th was quiet. Most of the building was still on holiday hours. But she'd come in specifically for this. We sat at her conference table, and she spread out the response documents like a general laying out battle plans. We're filing a comprehensive response to Emma's petition, she said, pulling up the first document on her tablet. Point by point, we're going to refute every allegation, but more importantly, we're attaching exhibits. She handed me a USB drive. This contains everything. Screenshots of the group chat, timestamped and authenticated. Financial records proving Emma's access to funds. Dr. Brennan's therapy notes, character references, medical records, bank statements, everything. I held the small drive in my palm, 8 gigabytes of evidence, the complete record of my innocence and their conspiracy, reduced to something that weighed less than an ounce. The restraining order hearing is scheduled for January 4th, Diane continued. That's when this all becomes real. Emma's lawyer will argue that you're a threat to her safety, that she needs protection from you. We'll argue the opposite, that she's fabricating abuse claims as part of a coordinated effort to gain financial advantage in the divorce. And we'll show them the chat? We'll introduce it into evidence. Every message, every strategy session, every moment where they coached her on what to say, how to act, what narrative to build. Diane's smile was sharp. David, by the time we're done, the judge won't just deny the restraining order. They'll question every single allegation Emma has made. What about Jerry, her lawyer? He's good, expensive. But here's the thing about expensive lawyers. They don't like surprises. They especially don't like discovering that their client has been lying to them, that the case they thought they were building is actually a conspiracy to commit fraud. She leaned back. When Jerry sees this evidence, he's going to have a very serious conversation with Emma and her family about their exposure. Exposure to what? Criminal charges, potentially. Conspiracy to commit perjury, fraud, filing false claims with the court. At minimum, it'll destroy Emma's credibility completely. She won't get the settlement they were hoping for. She'll be lucky to walk away with anything beyond basic community property. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. This was everything I'd been working toward for months, the moment when the truth would be revealed, when the lies would collapse under the weight of documentation. Instead, I felt empty. Because winning this way meant the permanent destruction of someone I'd once loved. It meant standing in a courtroom and systematically dismantling Emma's credibility, her character, her claims. It meant turning the final chapter of our marriage into a public spectacle of betrayal and recrimination. What if I don't want to do this? I asked quietly. Diane looked at me seriously. Then you withdraw your response, accept the restraining order, and let her narrative stand unchallenged. You give up your right to defend yourself. You let the court believe you're an abuser. You accept whatever settlement terms she demands. And if I do that, you lose everything. Your reputation, your assets, your sense of justice. And Emma learns that lies work. that she can destroy someone's life without consequences, that her family's manipulation was the right strategy all along. I thought about Emma sitting in her parents' house right now, probably at their kitchen table, surrounded by the people who'd convinced her to do this. Was she having second thoughts? Regrets? Or had they closed ranks around her, reassured her that I was bluffing, that the evidence couldn't be real, that everything would work out according to their plan? File it, I said. All of it. The response was filed on December 28th at 2:33 p.m. By 4:15 p.m., my phone started ringing. Jerry Pemberton, 3 times in a row. I didn't answer. At 5:47 p.m., Emma called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was barely coherent. Tears, confusion, anger, all mixed together. How could you? Those were private conversations with my family. You had no right.
My lawyer says you've committed a serious violation of my privacy. You're just proving you're exactly what they said you were. Call me back, David. Call me back right now.
I saved the voicemail, added it to my evidence file. Exhibit 47. Emma's voicemail, demonstrating continued manipulation by family, claiming privacy violation for messages I was legally added to. Everything was evidence now. Every word, every action, every emotional outburst, all of it could be documented, categorized, used. It was clinical, efficient, utterly devoid of humanity. It was survival. At 8:23 p.m., a different number called. I recognized it from Emma's contact list in my phone. Jessica. I answered this one. You bastard, she said without preamble. You absolute bastard. Do you have any idea what you've done to my sister? I've defended myself against false allegations. That's what I've done. Those were private family conversations. You had no right to spy on us. I didn't spy. Your mother added me to the chat by accident. Everything I know because I was a legitimate participant in the conversation, however briefly. You're going to use those messages to destroy Emma in court, to make her look like a liar. I'm going to use those messages to demonstrate the truth, which is that your family coordinated a campaign to frame me as an abuser so Emma could get a larger divorce settlement.
That's not me making her look like a liar, Jessica. That's her being a liar.
She's not lying. You are controlling. You are emotionally abusive. Just because you found some messages where we were trying to help her doesn't change what you are. Then I'll see you in court. Bring your evidence. Bring your testimonies. Bring whatever proof you have that I'm this monster you've created, and I'll bring mine. We'll let a judge decide who's telling the truth. She was quiet for a moment, then softer. She loves you, you know, even now, even after everything. Some part of her still loves you.
No, I said.
She loves who she thought I was, before you convinced her otherwise. The person she loves doesn't exist, Jessica. You made sure of that. I hung up before she could respond. The days between December 28th and January 4th were strange suspended time, like waiting for test results or verdict readings or any other moment when your life might fundamentally change direction. Emma moved the rest of her things out on December 30th. I made sure to be at Marcus's house during the move. Didn't want to be there. Didn't want the confrontation or the emotion or the final visual of our life together being boxed up and carted away. When I came home that evening, the house was different. Not just emptier, surgically altered. She'd taken half of everything with mathematical precision. Half the books, half the art, half the kitchen equipment, half the photos, including all the ones of her family, leaving behind only the pictures of us together and my family. The bedroom was the worst. Her side of the closet was completely bare. No clothes, no shoes, no jewelry box. The dresser drawers that had been hers were empty. Even her pillow was gone from the bed. It looked like a crime scene. Like someone had been erased. I stood in our bedroom, my bedroom now, and I tried to feel something. Grief, anger, relief, anything. But there was just numbness. A protective coating that my brain had developed over months of sustained emotional warfare. On the kitchen counter, she'd left a note. David, I know you think this is all calculated, that my family manipulated me. that I'm the villain in your story. Maybe from where you're standing, that's how it looks. But from where I'm standing, I'm terrified. I'm confused. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if you're the person I married or the person my family sees. I don't know if my feelings are my own or if they've been planted there. I just know I can't do this anymore. I can't live in a marriage where we're both constantly defending ourselves, collecting evidence, treating love like a legal proceeding. The restraining order hearing is in a few days. My lawyer says your evidence doesn't matter, that accessing those messages was illegal, that the judge will see through your tactics. I don't know if that's true. I don't know anything anymore. I'm sorry. For all of it. For my part in how we got here. For whatever that's worth. E. I read the note 3 times. Then I photographed it, added it to my evidence file. Exhibit 48. Note from Emma acknowledging confusion about whether her feelings are authentic or implanted by family, and filed it away. Then I sat at my kitchen table and I cried. Not the dramatic, cathartic crying of movies, where the protagonist breaks down and emerges stronger. Just quiet tears. The kind that come from exhaustion more than grief. The kind that your body produces when it's processed too much for too long and something has to give. I cried for the marriage we could have had, for the people we'd been before. Money and family and suspicion had poisoned everything. For the future we'd planned that would never exist, the kids we'd never have, the trips we'd never take, the decades of partnership that had been reduced to legal filings and evidence exhibits. I cried until there was nothing left. Then I went to bed alone in my half-empty house and slept dreamlessly for the first time in months. January 4th arrived cold and clear, the kind of winter morning where everything looks sharp-edged and unforgiving. The courthouse was downtown, a brutalist concrete building that seemed designed to intimidate. I met Diane in the lobby at 8:30 a.m., both of us carrying briefcases, full of documentation, ready for war. Emma will be here with Jerry, Diane said as we went through security. Her family will probably be here too, for support. I need you to stay calm, no matter what happens. Don't react to anything they say or do. Let me handle everything. What are the chances the judge grants the restraining order? Without our evidence? High. These orders are usually granted as a precaution, but with our evidence? She smiled. We're about to make legal history, David. I've never seen a case where the respondent had this level of documentation proving the petitioner's claims were fabricated. We took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked down a hallway that smelled like floor polish and anxiety. Courtroom 4B, Family Law Division. Emma was already there, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom with Jerry Pemberton, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who looked exactly like what he was, a lawyer who specialized in extracting money from divorces. Emma's entire family was there too, Sarah and Robert sitting on either side of her like bodyguards. Jessica standing nearby with her husband Mark, who looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. Amanda was there too, arm around Emma's shoulders, whispering something in her ear. They all looked up when I walked in. The hatred in their eyes was palpable, physical, like I could feel it radiating across the space between us. Sarah stood up. You have some nerve showing up here, after what you've done. Diane put a hand on my arm, a gentle reminder to stay quiet. She addressed Jerry instead. Counselor, I trust you've reviewed our response and exhibits? Jerry's expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his jaw. We have. My client maintains that those communications were obtained illegally and should be inadmissible. Your client's mother added my client to the group chat herself. The messages were obtained legally as a participant in the conversation, but we can certainly argue admissibility before the judge if you'd like. Before Jerry could respond, a bailiff opened the courtroom doors. Hearing for Mitchell Park versus Park. All parties inside. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench that dominated the space. The Honorable Margaret Chen presiding, according to the nameplate. We took our positions, Emma and Jerry at one table, Diane and me at the other. Emma's family filed into the gallery behind her, a wall of support and hostility. Judge Chen entered, and we all stood. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and the kind of face that had seen every variety of human messiness and stopped being surprised by any of it. Please be seated. This is a hearing on the petitioner's request for a temporary restraining order. Counselor Pemberton, you may present your argument. Jerry stood, smooth and practiced. Your Honor, my client Emma Mitchell Park is here today seeking protection from a pattern of emotional abuse and financial control perpetrated by her husband, David Park. Over the course of their 8-year marriage, Mr. Park has systematically isolated Mrs. Park from her family and friends, monitored her financial activities, and created an environment of fear and intimidation. He went on, painting me as a monster, controlling, manipulative, dangerous. He cited Emma's therapy sessions, her journal entries, the testimony of her family who'd witnessed my hostile behavior toward them. It was the narrative they'd been building for 6 months, delivered with professional polish to someone who had the power to make it legally binding. Then, it was Diane's turn. She stood, and I watched her transform. This wasn't the sympathetic lawyer from her office. This was a warrior. Your Honor, everything you've just heard is a fabrication, not a misunderstanding, not a difference of perspective. A deliberate, coordinated fabrication designed to gain financial advantage in this dissolution proceeding. She pulled out her tablet. I'm submitting into evidence a complete record of communications between Mrs. Park and her family members spanning 6 months. These communications detail what they called Operation Freedom, a plan to frame Mr. Park as abusive in order to maximize Mrs. Park's settlement in a divorce they were planning before she ever filed. The courtroom went silent. I could feel Emma's family shifting behind us, feel the sudden tension. Jerry stood. Objection, Your Honor. Those communications were obtained through illegal surveillance. They were obtained, Diane interrupted, when Mrs. Park's mother accidentally added Mr. Park to their group chat. He was a legitimate participant. Everything he saw legally, and what he saw was a conspiracy. Judge Chen leaned forward. I'll review the exhibits. Counselor, approach with the evidence. Diane walked forward, handed the tablet to the judge. Then she returned to our table and whispered, Now we wait. Judge Chen read. For 10 minutes, she scrolled through the screenshots, her expression never changing. 10 minutes, that felt like hours. Then she looked up at Emma. Mrs. Park, did you participate in these conversations? Emma stood, trembling. Yes, but did you and your family coordinate a plan to document false claims of abuse against your husband? It wasn't like that. I really was feeling. Did you? Judge Chen's voice was steel. Knowingly make false statements to your therapist about your husband's behavior? Emma looked at Jerry, at her mother, at me. I don't know, I thought. They told me. Judge Chen set down the tablet. Request for restraining order denied. Mrs. Park, I'm ordering you and your attorney to meet with opposing counsel to discuss withdrawal of several allegations in your divorce petition. If you proceed with claims that this evidence contradicts, you may face sanctions for filing false statements with this court. She looked at Sarah and Robert. As for you, I suggest you consult with your own attorneys about your potential liability here. This court does not look kindly on parties who conspire to fabricate abuse claims. The gavel came down, and just like that, it was over. The hallway outside courtroom 4B erupted the moment we stepped through the doors. Sarah's voice cut through first, sharp and venomous. You planned this! You manipulated everything! I turned to face her, Diane's hand still on my arm in warning, but I shook it off. I was done being silent. I planned nothing, I said quietly. You added me to that chat. You planned Operation Freedom. You coached Emma on what lies to tell. You orchestrated every single piece of this, and the only thing I did was document it. Those were private family conversations about how to frame me for abuse I never committed, about how to steal money I earned, about how to destroy my life for your financial benefit. My voice never rose, never wavered. The judge saw it, your lawyer saw it, and now Emma sees it too. I looked past Sarah to where Emma stood, her face pale, tears streaming silently. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like someone waking up from a long nightmare only to find the real world was worse. "Emma," I said, and she flinched at her name. "I loved you. I would have given you anything you asked for. All you had to do was be honest with me. Talk to me like I was your partner instead of your enemy. But you chose this. You chose their plan over our marriage." "I was confused," she started. "You were coached," I corrected. "There's a difference." Jerry Pemberton stepped forward, his professional composure cracking slightly. "Mr. Park, perhaps we could discuss settlement terms privately." "Settlement terms?" I looked at him incredulously. "Your client just tried to get a restraining order against me based on fabricated abuse claims. She documented false evidence, lied to a therapist, and committed perjury in her court filings. And you want to discuss settlement? My client is still entitled to community property. Your client is entitled to what the law allows. Nothing more. Diane will send over our proposal. It'll be fair and legally accurate. If Emma wants to contest it, we'll see her in court with all this evidence again. Her choice." I turned away from all of them, from Sarah's fury, from Robert's calculation, from Jessica's accusations, from Amanda's shocked silence, from Emma's broken expression. "David, wait!" Emma's voice cracked. I paused but didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said, "but sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of lies. Sorry doesn't give me back the marriage I thought we had." I walked away down that courthouse hallway, Diane beside me, leaving behind the wreckage of everything Emma and I had built together. Behind me, I heard Emma start to sob. I didn't look back. The divorce was finalized on March 15th. 3 months after the restraining order hearing, after negotiations conducted entirely through lawyers, after Emma withdrew the abuse allegations and accepted a settlement that gave her exactly what she was legally entitled to and nothing more. She got her half of the house equity, a portion of the marital assets accumulated during our marriage, her car, her personal belongings, her half of the furniture we'd bought together. She didn't get the millions her family had planned for. She didn't get to paint me as an abuser. She didn't get Operation Freedom. She got a divorce. Clean, legal, final. I bought out her half of the house. Kept the home we'd chosen together, though it would never feel the same. Every room held ghosts, conversations we'd had, futures we'd planned, love we'd made, before it all turned toxic. Marcus helped me repaint the bedroom. Jennifer helped me rearrange the furniture, change things enough that it felt less like a museum of my failed marriage and more like a fresh start. The group chat disappeared from my life. I deleted all the screenshots from my personal devices after the divorce was final. Diane kept copies in her files, but I didn't need them anymore. Didn't need to read those messages, to relive those months of discovery and strategy and quiet devastation. I heard through mutual friends that Emma moved to Portland, started over in a new city, away from her family's influence. I hoped that meant she'd finally found the clarity she'd been searching for. I hoped she was okay. Even after everything, I hoped that... Spring came slowly that year, winter reluctant to release its grip, but eventually the trees bloomed. The world turned green again. Life insisted on continuing whether I was ready or not. I started dating again in May. Nothing serious, coffee with a colleague, dinner with someone Marcus set me up with, tentative steps back into trust, into vulnerability, into the possibility that not everyone would betray me. It was terrifying. It was necessary. On a Saturday in June, I was planting new flowers in the backyard, replacing the garden Emma had started, making it mine when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Emma. I know I have no right to contact you. I just wanted you to know I'm in therapy. Real therapy. Working through what happened. Understanding how I let them manipulate me. You deserved better. I'm sorry I couldn't see that until it was too late." I stared at the message for a long time, thought about responding, about offering forgiveness or closure or whatever people are supposed to offer in moments like this. Instead, I deleted the message and went back to planting flowers. Some wounds heal. Some scars remain. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is simply to move forward, carrying both the wounds and the wisdom, building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. The garden would bloom, spring would come again, and I would be here to see it.